Next on.
I am getting into this alliance only because of my mother.
Are you rejecting my proposal, Prince Justin?
It is not possible for me to not love Noor.
If this is the motive of this wedding, then I will remove all the chances for Princess Agnishika to bear a child, let alone bear a son.
Your Highness, Ashok and his...
On the next episode of Corner.
Have you resolved your thing with Wanjala? The two of you must sort this out.
You know Wanjala.
I'm talking to you right now.
Today's the day. Unajisikiaje?
I don't know. Nervous?
But wewe usema unapenda ukiwa nervous.
On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
You know what, Elena? Having you like this, so close to me, but still so far away from me, actually causes me a lot of pain.
And what do you know about pain? You don't even have any feelings.
That's what I thought.
Andrea, you were just like Michael. You were both suffering for an impossible love.
You just said it. It was an impossible love. I never had anything with him.
You're gonna pay for that!
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Oh, think twice. Just another day for you. You and me in Kingston Town. Lions in the jungle. We are the lions in the jungle.
Yo, remember, ukitaka kustay safe from coronavirus, lazima ufuate hizi steps. 1. Osha mikono kila time for 20 seconds, hata unaweza imba happy birthday mara 2. 2. Usishike uso, macho na mapua yako especially kama hujaosha mikono. 3. Ukitaka kucough, utumie tissue alafu utupe kwa dustbin ama ucough kwa elbow. 4. Avoid kuenda mahali kuna watu wengi ama kusalimia mtu na kuhug mtu. In case usikie uko mgonjwa, please ambia parents wako ama guardians wako. Let's all stay safe.
Good morning, Kenya, and welcome to News Check on this 27th day of May 2020. Hope you're keeping safe, keeping the distance, and of course, keeping the faith. Well, today we will be discussing the role of the church in the war against COVID-19. And by the role of the church, I mean mosques included, temples, even synagogues, so that we make this discussion more interactive and touch on all corners. My name is Ben Troy. That is what we will be discussing in the light of COVID-19. Remember, we are having the greatest global challenge since the Second World War, and I can comfortably say this is the biggest medical challenge we have yet. Of course, a lot of the medical challenges that we've had over the years and centuries, we have been able to turn the leaf and start afresh. We will be discussing that, but just before that, we will also be checking on what my fellow colleagues are doing. First things first, let's have a look at the reporter's diary. Those are some of the issues that we'll be looking at today, and of course we'll be keeping you afloat on what is happening in all those corners. Well, before we get there, we are live from the broadcasting house here in Nairobi. We're also live on Twitter, on Facebook, and also on YouTube. Tell us where you're watching us from, even your suggestion, comments, or even where you're watching us from. The question on Viewpoint today, we are asking, do you support calls to open worship centers in the country? Do you support calls to open worship centers in the country? Do you remember yesterday we had, there was a meeting by the Catholic bishops together with Interior CS on the way forward when it comes to the easing of the coronavirus restrictions. Send us your comment, suggestion, or answer to, do you support calls to open worship centers? And by worship center, I also mean the mosques, churches, temples, or even synagogues. At Bentro Enjoy, at KBC Channel 1. The hashtag, as always, is News Check. Today, as I had alluded, we are discussing the role of the church, and especially in this COVID-19 pandemic. Yesterday, we had a meeting, and if my director, Mugo, can cue in actually that clip so that we may be able to start from there, so that we may know exactly what is going to happen if the coronavirus restrictions are eased to allow people to attend worship centers. Okay, as we wait for that, let me introduce my guest. My guest today is a pastor. Yes. He's also a motivational speaker, and also a daktari. Yes. Karibu sana, Daktari Bishop, Daktari Pastor Julius Kimani.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here, and I believe we shall have a solid conversation.
Yes.
Looking at different ways concerning the church. And at the end of the day, our greatest desire is that this situation may be, number one, maintained and contained, and God willing, then we hope the churches reopen.
Karibu sana.
Yes.
And before even we get deeper into the discussion, yesterday you had posted a sermon and I watched it, and you were talking about patience was the topic of the day. Do you think we should be even more patient before we reopen the churches?
Now, what I would say is that whether we like it or not, COVID-19 may be here for a long time.
Indeed.
Because looking at the history of diseases, we've never seen, there's no disease that disappears. Actually, it's just contained. So we must be ready to know that this situation will be with us for long. But that means there has to be an adaptation to the whole thing. And that is where we say we have to look very carefully. It is an intricate balance, and see when we step to reopen churches, for example, then the strict measures must be taken to ensure at the end of the day there is no infections going on. Because I believe the utmost care and the desire for God is for people to have abundant life, not to die. Therefore, whatever step we take, we have to be to take with a lot of wisdom and with a lot of care and concern. And I thank the government for what they have done so far, because they have put a lot of measures in place. And I believe as we continue, we will be able to see on how we can be able to do the same, even when it comes to the churches.
And you are one of the bishops, or one of the pastors or religious organizations that has embraced technology. On Facebook, on Twitter, you're posting your sermons and preachings.
Yes.
Kindly, how has the new normal that we're having in Kenya been for you?
Wow, it is, of course, it's not easy. It is challenging when you know that there are people who may not be reached by the sermons. We have to keep on sharing the word of God, because at the end of the day, even if it reaches one person, because I believe God is a personal God, and if that one person is reached, he can be able to be effective also in the families. But the greatest challenge I find, I was just doing a small research, and I find there are about 7 million users of Facebook in Kenya. Now, looking at the entire congregation, most of us are using the Facebook channel, because many may not be on TV channels and probably radio, which is actually an expensive way. But looking at the Facebook with 7 million users, that means, assuming we take what we say 80% are Christians, only 5.6 million may be able to access the services, considering that in Kenya we have about 50 million people. So there is a big number everywhere that is not being reached by the gospel. Yes.
So at least you're able to also inform your viewers on either YouTube or on Facebook on the mitigation factors, or even the mitigation factor that we are supposed to follow as a country. Spreading the message through technology, of course, is very different, because during churches, people are so social. Have you encountered people who are telling you, man, this is really hitting me so hard?
You know, there are people, I believe in church, we have different levels of...
Just a minute. Let's see, Minister Tobiko is having a presser at the Met. So let's kindly listen in first before you answer that question. Okay.
We also commend you, the media. You've been with us along this journey, covering our events, and also not just here in Nairobi, but also across the country. We thank you very, very much. Let me also thank KBC. I know that in the last 2 days they have been working with our KMD team. They have integrated weather forecasting in their prime time news. And I would appeal to the other media houses to do likewise. KMD has a facility here. They have a studio to train broadcasters, to train journalists. And I would appeal that we work together in helping our people understand the situation, not just now, because of the importance of weather, have a long-standing, sustainable relationship. In the previous briefings, I have emphasized the importance of environment, the correlation between environment, nature, and biodiversity on what we are experiencing today, whether you're talking about COVID-19 or the current floods and mudslides. And we're exceptionally grateful to His Excellency the President that last week, when he announced that 8-point stimulus package, environment has been given the necessary location and recognition. The President has announced that the sector broadly, in appreciating the importance of environment and nature, will get about 3 billion Kenya shilling out of the stimulus package. That should be one to mitigate on the impact of deforestation, climate change, and provision of water to the ASAL areas, flood controls, and my colleague here will be speaking a lot about flood controls, and also Greening Kenya initiative, the massive tree planting activities. Really thank the President for underscoring the importance of environment. I mention again and I repeat, we have, as a people, have to take our own responsibility. We have extended our settlements and buildings into riparian reserves. We have a situation where we have built houses on rivers. We have a situation now in one of the rivers in places in Nairobi River, where a person actually claims not just the land, the riparian reserve, but also the river itself. It's a strange phenomenon. So we have a responsibility as a people also to respect the laws regarding riparian reserve, whether lakes, rivers, and so on and so forth. Let me now invite my colleague, whose docket largely covers the flood controls and the emergency relief activities, to brief the country. My colleague.
Thank you very much, my colleague C.S. Tobiko, our PSS, and our meteorological team. May I start, first of all, just by confirming that last time when we were here, the figures we had given in terms of the impact of the floods, the ongoing heavy rains, the landslides, the mudslides across the country, as per the last briefing, we had lost 256 lives. We had also had 808,000 Kenyans affected by the ongoing heavy rains, the floods, the landslides, and the mudslides. As of midnight last night, the total number of lives lost have risen from 256 to 285. And also the number of people affected has risen to 810,655. This is just a part of the effects of these heavy rains that have been ongoing, but we also have acreage in terms of crop loss in many parts of the country that our colleagues in agriculture will be confirming by next week. As the rain subside, we will be able to establish the exact acreage in terms of crop loss that we have suffered, in terms of the irrigation land and infrastructure that has been affected, and we will be able to give you a more comprehensive report next week. But also, we take this opportunity to thank our experts. The meteorological department has been of great help in terms of giving us very accurate information and very, very reliable data. And we must thank them for this very, very important part they have played. And the accuracy actually tells us that going forward into the future, when we get alerts, when we are warned by experts that it is going to rain or that we are likely to have landslides, please do not take these alerts lightly, because we have seen even in areas where we were affected in terms of landslides in West Pokot, in Elgeyo Marakwet, both last year and this year, the experts warned us just weeks to such tragedies. So what we need to improve on going forward is our response and how we utilize information given to us. We also want to thank the meteorological department for devolving their services. As we speak, in terms of services being rendered in all our counties. We have experts now that are part of our county leadership, and we want to urge all our county governments to work very closely with the meteorological department through their representatives. These services are now devolved. I think if we're able to do that, we will be able to plan better, to utilize the information given better, and to save more lives in terms of improving our response when these tragedies come. We also want to assure all families affected, and we're talking of over 810,000 Kenyans who have been affected across 33 counties, that the national government will continue supporting you in all the 33 counties in terms of relief food. Today, the experts have shown us that from now going forward, the rains are subsiding. When you look at the water levels of all our dams, and I spoke to CS Keter this morning, he says our dams are still full, but they have now stabilized, meaning we are likely to see the effects of flooding in, say, Garissa and Tana River also subsiding as the dam levels also stabilize. But this does not mean that we should relax, because as we've been told by the experts, though the rains will be subsiding in northern Kenya, parts of eastern, we will still be having rains going into June in the western part of the country, Nyanza, the Lake Basin region. Also at the coast, we will be still experiencing rains and parts of Rift Valley. So let us stay alert. Let us keep responding to the alerts that we have been given, so that going into June, we will be able to prevent any further loss of life or property. For the State Department of Devolution and Special Programs, relief food will continue being supplied to the affected families into June and until the rains actually stop. Cessation of rains, as we've been told by the experts, would be in June. But even after June, they will be the most critical part of now supporting the families, rehabilitating them. Most of them have no homes to go back to. Most of them are living in camps and in tents. And it is the assurance of national government that we will work with the county governments affected to support all the affected families. Last year, those families that were affected in the landslide in West Pokot, in Parua, we had 109 homes that were flattened and lives lost. As we speak, through Red Cross, the national government has been able to reconstruct the 109 houses. We equally had a place affected called Nyarkulian. We had 72 houses, and as we speak now, those families have new houses that they have moved back to. And lastly, in Tamkal, we had 44 houses affected, and I'm happy to report that as we speak, through Red Cross, the national government and the West Pokot County government and the donors have been able to reconstruct those houses. So we will be able to work with the counties, identify the families like those in Moranga who have also been displaced by landslides and mudslides, so that after the rains stop in June, we will be able to now see how to restore normalcy in terms of supporting them rebuild their lives. We are also urging our county governments that we now help the families with seed and fertilizer. Most of them are very hardworking Kenyans. They had already planted, they had crops in their farms that were submerged. Crops were washed away, animals were washed away. Let us support these hardworking Kenyans so that they may get seeds and fertilizer to go back to the farm as the water subsides, so that they can plant again and start moving forward with their lives. Lastly, I also want to thank His Excellency the President. As my colleague C.S. Tobiko has said, enough in terms of resources and attention has been given to the flood situation in the country. In terms of the 8-point plan, we have resources that will help in flood control, meaning we can start rebuilding the dikes that have been broken in Budalangi, in Nyando, and other parts like Teso that need dikes to be built around River Sabwani, in Tana River, and the other areas. So we will be working together with all the ministries in the sector to ensure that we now go back to fighting this menace by building dikes to prevent future recurrences. But also, as we conclude, we want to urge Kenyans to allow us as national government proceed with the long-term solutions in terms of the dams that have been identified, that have been designed in different parts of the country, so that when the rains end, because our experts tell us, and they have been accurate so far, by end of June the rains would have ended. We don't know when COVID would end, but we know when the rains would end. Beginning June going into July, we must start working together on the long-term solutions, and let us not please politicize national government projects in terms of the dams and the dikes and the land required for construction of these projects.
Speaking, that was a CS for Devolution, Eugene Wamalwa, just giving us an insight on what the government is doing. And the latest statistics that 810,655 people have been affected by the floods, and 285 have died as a result. But he has said that the government will assist people who have been displaced by the floods and also landslides to rebuild their life. CS CS earlier also talked about the government, how the government is also balancing between the floods and the COVID-19. Of course, also CS Tobiko has talked about cash being set aside for reforestation, tree planting, water conservation, and of course provision for the arid and semi-arid regions. And also have requested people to respect laws regarding riparian land. We've witnessed so many buildings built in riparian lands. In case you're joining us now, this is Channel 1 News Check, and today we are discussing the role of the church in actually helping in the war against COVID-19. And my guest tonight, Dr. Pastor Julius Kimani of Shelter of Love Church. He is also a motivational speaker. Mm-hmm. And earlier on, before we went for that presser, we were talking about how the spreading the message of hope, yes, and also of how to contain the COVID-19, because, of course, you command a lot of following in the world, that is, yes, churches. And when I'm talking about churches, I'm also including mosques, synagogues, temples, so that we may all have an inclusive discussion. Earlier on, my doctor tells me that that clip is ready. Yesterday, Catholic bishops had met with officials from the government to ensure that if we have eased the cessations and if we ease the restrictions, what will happen, and especially for the church. Mugo, if that clip is ready, kindly.
The government on Tuesday was in talks with the Catholic Church bishops to deliberate on combined efforts to find common ground on how the country should move forward after the post-coronavirus lockdown.
We have agreed on some ways forward that we shall go sit down and focus on, through which we shall all put efforts to combine these efforts to fight the COVID-19 in our society.
A consultative meeting that the government says was critical as the state is moving to adopt difficult decisions in taming the spread of COVID-19.
We were sent here, like last week, by His Excellency the President to engage with these leaders and listen to them, take their advice on the number of decisions we have to make. As you know, in this war against COVID, we are moving towards a time when we have to make several decisions, and His Excellency the President wants to be sure that we are all moving together and that we take into account the advice we get from our church leaders particularly.
Led by KCCB Chair Bishop Philip Anyolo and His Eminence Cardinal Njue, the church leaders called for inclusivity and improved communication in disseminating messages about the contagious disease.
We know the situation in which it is, the graph is going higher and higher, and therefore it helps us if we took things prudently and understandingly so as not to fall into the pit again of going back to start to square zero.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i noted that the church's advice is vital in the government's decisions, and it will be fully incorporated in the resources set aside in the COVID-19 response team.
We pledge that we will continue to work together even as we approach the difficult decisions we have to make. We will do as we have been advised, enhance and improve our communication, be more inclusive in the manner in which we move forward on this. And we are going to see even much closer partnership with the church in training, capacity building, and in sharing the resources that have come our way in the war against COVID-19.
Kamche Menza for Channel 1 News.
Thanks, Kamche, for that. And as you've heard, Interior CS Fred Matiang'i talking about difficult decisions to be made, and especially when it comes to houses of worship. You do remember we had cases of churches that still continued even after the government had said had banned all social gatherings. But that is a discussion that we are having right now. And Julius Kimani, Dr. Julius Kimani,
yes,
of Shelter of Love Church, is assisting us with that discussion. Earlier on, before we go to that, you were talking about spreading the message of not only hope, but also how to mitigate effects of the virus.
Yes, I believe one of the key roles that we have as pastors and all the religious leaders is communicating the risks that are involved with COVID-19 and every step that is required to be taken. And that's why it's so important, as you're saying, for that unity.
Yes.
Because every Sunday or even Fridays when people meet in the mosques, there is a lot of information that can be shared by the religious leaders. There is nothing as powerful. You remember when the HIV pandemic hit?
Yes.
One of the ways that it was actually overcome, it was that the churches took the role of communicating the issues of HIV and also the stigmatization that was happening to the people who had HIV. And we can see today, there are a lot of people who do not have the disease. Why? Because they got the right information. So what I'm saying is that we have done a lot, because every time we send out a message, we have to communicate and tell the people, please take care, keep the social distancing. And I think that is a role that should be taken by every pastor everywhere. Because sometimes we have, of course, faith is not foolishness. Because, but there are people who can take steps that can be dangerous in the place of saying this is faith. There are things, you can't walk on the road and you can see cars coming at a high speed.
Yes.
And you say, I will just stand on the road and I do not expect to be hit.
Yes.
There has to be reasonable communication to every member of the church that even if the worship centers are reopened, the strict measures have to be taken to ensure nobody dies or nobody is infected. Yes.
And following that clip now, difficult decisions, because Interior CS had a hard time after the cessation, and of course the social gatherings were banned, because we witnessed a lot of churches being caught with the hand in the cookie jar, actually continuing. Others were even had locked the churches. It will be difficult, don't you think?
No, it's actually not easy. And even now, if you look at the situation, even in our industry, it has taken some time for people to conform. But I believe at this particular moment, I happen to have gone somewhere of late, just here in Kiambu, the place that is not yet closed, is part of Nairobi. But I looked around and I saw children wearing masks, which before they were not doing, and they are playing around, and you can see they are keeping their distances. So the government has played its role in communicating and trying to enforce these restrictions. And I believe in the same way, if the restrictions, they are difficult, because the main aspect here, the question that the president and the ministers involved will be asking, will we have more deaths? And at the end of the day, the fingers will be pointed at them, whether they were able to stop this or what happened. But I say we cannot entirely say that we will not move on. We have to move on. Just like the businesses, the key issue here is to adapt. And the only way to adapt is information, 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 reaching everybody that can be reached. And that is the only way we can be able to step forward.
Bishop, a lot of ministries, Pastor, apologies for that. A lot
I
of
think you're prophesying.
Yes, it's a prophecy. Yes. A lot of ministries and churches have started or have programs, feeding programs, the elderly, the sick, perhaps those people living with disabilities. And mostly they rely on the money that the congregation actually gives so that they may be able to actualize these plans.
Yes.
How is the situation being right now? And are you in this? Have you started this program, or do you have this program? Because right now, people are not meeting, churches, but we really need to help people who need the help that we should be giving them.
Yeah, this is a sensitive issue. Basically, I could say in the Shelter of Love Church, we sat down with a few elders and we said, yes, we have been raising some money. Even part of it has been land money. And we said we would rather have, there are people who would die in this situation if we do not feed them. So we made a decision that whatever we had remaining, we are going to put it together. And we are going to ask the families, anyone who can be able, even if it is just unga, then they look for vegetables or whatever to do. And we saw such a wonderful response. When we did that, even other members who were able, they began to bring in food. And we were able to reach, and we are still continuing to reach out on those who may not have. And I believe sometimes we confuse the pastors and the church. The church is actually all the people who are in that place, who meet in that particular building. And if we can be able, because there are those who are able and some are not able. Just like if you read in the Bible, there's a story about the Macedonian church, which was able to give so much to help other churches that were going through needy situations. So this is something that has been happening. And I know even in the social media, I've seen people appreciating that. And sometimes you get attacks because you say, we are seeing organizations donating money, but where is the church not donating money? One of the things the Bible guides us with principles. You don't let your right hand know what the left hand is doing. But a lot of churches are helping the needy. I have even seen a pastor who has gone to another step. There are so many pastors who are not having food. And he has gone ahead to raise money for these needy pastors. So the church is at the background, but doing a lot of work at the grassroots.
Let's touch something on the youth. A lot of youths have lost gainful employment, either businesses or employment. And the youth mostly are the ones involved in crime. What do you think the church can do at this moment? Of course, the government has its hands full already. What do you think the church can do more to help these youths, and especially those who do not have jobs at now?
You know, one reality that I've come to discover, challenges bring innovations. And I have seen young people stepping out to do businesses they will not do before. Right now, all we are looking at is to survive and eating. I have seen young men who have gone to buying vegetables and selling them by the roadside. I have seen young men who have engaged, especially like in our area in Eastlands, where we have issues with water. I have seen a lot of young people who have actually gone out of the way and bought mikokotenis, and now they are supplying water. This is a time when the church has to communicate the issue of humility, because you can't eat your degree.
It's true.
You can't eat your education. A time reaches when you go down to the mud and decide, I will do something that will be able to help. So when I look at the whole situation, my challenge is for the young people to stop crying, serikali. Even them, they are having issues. It is a high time people have to sit down and look at a need in the community and see, how can I be able to meet this need? People are eating on an everyday basis. If you can only find some food and begin to sell it, it will work out. But I think the biggest challenge the young people have, and I think I also went through it, is that shame of being told, this guy used to work for an organization, he was an accountant, now he's selling skuma wiki. Let me tell you, nobody will ask you, when you're taking your money to the shop, nobody will ask where has it come from. All they want is that currency. So I would challenge the young people and encourage even the pastors who are listening, encourage the young people to start small businesses and not to be ashamed. Yes.
And there's also been calls for the government and other players, of course, to assist or support faith-based organizations. A lot of ministries and churches, mainstream churches, have started health centers. They've started children's home. They've started. They have also started homes to cater for the elderly.
Yes.
Do you think if they are given enough support, and especially in the rural areas,
yes,
you think it can help the fight against COVID?
You know, I believe we have a lot of pastors who have integrity, because one of the key challenges is that where the government has been trying to fight corruption.
Yes.
And I have a case that I know of where a children's home was listed for receiving food from an institution, a government institution, and they were not able to receive that food. Yet the person, the one in charge of distributing the food, had the name of the children's home. So what are we saying? There is corruption to some people. And we're not saying the government is corrupt. It is individuals who are corrupt. And I believe in this, if the government can be able to use pastors and religious leaders, they would be more accountable, and they will be able to reach, because we know those who are hungry. There are people who will come up. You know, being a pastor, we have every Sunday, or probably you have midweek services. These people come in. We know their situation. The government may not be able to get the entire information of the people, because there's somebody who will come and lie to you that I'm hungry. And the guy goes and sells unga or somewhere else. But I would say, if there can be an operation where religious leaders can be identified, and then food and other necessities channeled to them, there would be a lot of mitigation, especially when it comes to the effect of hunger that is caused by this COVID-19.
Indeed, and still on that, the accountability, we've seen even the Bishop, Lesapit, requesting for accountability for the COVID-19 funds. What would you think can be done? Because actually Kenya is one of the countries that are leading in when it comes to corruption.
Now, what I would say is that Kenya is not made of, it's not a country per se, it is the people.
Yes.
So we would say it is the Kenyans who are corrupt. They are Kenyans who are corrupt. And these are people who have lost sensitivity to the need of humanity. And I would say that we need to step up this fight against corruption. When these people are identified, let there be a just way of dealing with them. Instead of keeping them or transferring them to different places, let them be removed completely. Because I believe the CSs who are like now, when I see the CS, Mutai Kagwe, every day waking up to give us updates, it also pains them when they see money that they probably gave out was spent on some things that were not really necessary. And they would want to deal with it. But I would say we all need to step up what we are doing. Number one, the church has a big role, because many of these people that are doing this, some of them even sit in church boards. And that is why the message needs to be spoken of from the beginning. Teach about integrity in church. Teach about the character that is required for people to maintain. And once in a while, I like one, I think there was a bishop in the 1700s who would actually sit down the president and deny him communion. Deny him communion. He said, you're not taking communion because you have been engaged in corruption. And there was a lot of integrity in the nation.
Yes.
Because one man refused to do a few things because corruption. We need to reach a place. I'm not saying that when that happens, that when an MP comes, you say you don't take. But if you can be able to meet them like Nathan met David and told him, you have killed a man in the secret.
You're wrong.
That would be so necessary. Yes.
And would you like to see perhaps more involvement by the government? We've seen in that clip just a section of the religion, because those were Catholic bishops. Would you like more involvement? Because we have seen from all corners people saying, we need to do this. Bishops talking about, we need to do this. Do you think the government should involve the church more? And by the church, I mean even mosques, synagogues,
yes,
temples.
I believe, let me say, one thing that we may not know is that there have been series of meetings with leaders of the church.
Okay.
We may not all be present because there are so many religious leaders.
You have perhaps people who have been selected to sit in those boards.
There are bodies that sit, that have got leaders who are representing these issues. What I would say is that as much as we can, let us represent the true nature. Let there be consultation, even among the religious leaders. Let them consult widely down. Because today we may say, Nairobi, yes, let us reopen the churches.
Yeah.
We may have the sanitizer and everything. Is the person at the grassroots level, probably somewhere very far in our nation, is he able to get the same things? And if they are not, what can be done to help in this? So what I would urge is for more consultations, so that by the time, for example, the churches reopen, we will not have issues where we have religious leaders again negating all the work that had been done because they did not take their steps in fighting this pandemic. Yes.
Let's switch focus now. There are people who have their own religious beliefs, without mentioning any. There are even some who don't believe in going to hospitals. There are some who don't believe. There are some even who do not believe that COVID is right here in Kenya. Actually, it's existing. Is here with us.
Yes.
It's now in the estates. It's now in rural areas. It's almost in more than half of the counties in the country.
Yes.
And that's a big challenge when it comes to religious people, telling people that we need to keep the distance. We need also to keep the faith.
You see, as I said, faith is not foolishness.
Yes.
Faith requires wisdom in doing everything that we do. But we will not lack those people. Even today, we have people who are saying HIV is a curse. HIV is witchcraft. And if you do 1, 2, 3 things, you will get out of it. So those people cannot be wiped out completely. But it will be so important. That's why I'm saying going to the grassroots and meeting these people and communicating the information. And also showing examples. Because we have, like now, we have the Facebook.
Yes.
Do you know many people do not believe that COVID-19 exists in some areas? Why? They have never seen maybe what happened in Italy.
Yes.
They have not seen what happened in the US. Me and you, we may be able to watch the CNN, we may be able to watch this television station, and we can see the numbers that are there. But there is somebody who is saying, I have never seen anybody die. And that is where we need so much information going down, and that this can be done in collaboration with the churches. And at the same time, let us not say something does not exist because you have never seen it. It is simply like saying Italy does not exist because I've never been there. We know it is the Nabab, but it's never been there. You've never touched it. And that is actually more faith. That when you say that there is something and you have not seen it, then that is actually more faith. So I would say these people will not cease to be there. But as we continue to devolve information to where it is needed, I believe there are individuals, even if you have a pastor who is saying this thing does not exist, there is somebody who is able to reason and say, this I don't agree with.
Yes.
So we need a lot of information going downwards.
Let's shift focus to gender violence. There have been reported cases, increased cases actually, of gender violence, and especially at this time of the COVID-19.
Let me tell you, I think one of the things that will happen by the time COVID is ending is there could be a soar in terms of in divorces and people coming out. We've had actually to mitigate between couples because the cases are so many in the police station, and they look at the situation, they cannot keep on sending them to jail. So we have actually had to go to some police station, especially in our area, where we sit down with couples and we help them out of the situation. Being marriage counselors, I believe this is a time. Number one, counselors, you need to get ready. Number two, the pastors also need to get ready because challenges will be there. There is a man who now does not have a job and he stays at home the whole day. And probably the wife is now saying, you are useless.
Yes.
These things are causing a lot of violence. And also men. Also men are going through issues. You know, there are so many men who don't report. I believe like 80% of the men who are beaten at home, they don't say it. They will say probably the reason I'm swelling, I was in the gym. I was doing boxing. But they have been beaten. And these things are happening. But what we can do is that one of the things is that if you're a person and that is watching and you're a family person, counseling does not mean that you're weak. Because a lot of people, especially in Kenya, when they say, I'm going for family counseling, they look at it in a negativity. Marriages need help. And especially at this particular time. Yes.
Okay. We are taking our first short, quick break, but when we come back, we're discussing more actually on gender violence and crowd control.
Yes.
If at all the lockdowns and the curfews in the world were not there, we could have witnessed a lot of cases during the Easter period or the Eid or Diwali for our Indian brothers. We'll be discussing that, but remember our viewpoint question. Do you support? There have been calls, of course. It should be on your screen now. There has been calls for reopening of churches in Kenya. Do you support? And by churches, I mean including mosques, synagogues, and temples. Let's take that well-deserved break.
Embakasi Utawala tuko locked. Ungem Autanyahururu Kasuku Massive.
Jeshi ya Nyeri Coast Maua Nakuru kwa locked mbaya.
Kigumo Ward na ambao wote wako ndani ya KBC Channel 1.
Akulaliki Wednesday bila the ref.
Mbotela Auta Idara Kitengela.
Kiambu County 33 Pipeline Meru anawakilisha.
Rongai Maboxa pale go down. Karatina Auta Mlolongo wana enjoy show. Lare Sub County Auta Githurai 45. Lanet Barracks tuko ndani yake. Okongo Auta Carnation Maragwa Seti
Nairobi.
Fika wako locked mbaya sana.
Watu wangu wa Nakuru Ngwaro.
Auta Gilgil.
Live kutoka Mazeras Bahati Massive.
Thika Massive.
Siaya Shikambi Kakamega Bungoma County.
Kusia Boda
Kisumu City.
Malindi yote iko ndani ya the ref.
When I'm in Kenya, I tune in to the rave. Get your mind free, focus, conscious.
Kenya,
East Africa.
Right.
Keep it locked.
Calling out to Africa.
Welcome back. This is News Check, and today we are focusing on the church and the fight against COVID-19, the role of the church in the war against COVID-19. And joining me in studio is Dr. Pastor Julius Kimani, who is also, other than his pastoral duties, is also a motivational speaker. Yes. And earlier, before we went for that break, we were discussing about gender violence. We have seen so many cases, and of course, the church, so a lot of people say just want to go to the church to pray about their relationship, but they cannot do that right now. So the only people left are you guys. Yes, and counselors.
We have seen a great number of people coming simply because of this violence. And what we did, we know there is that risk, but we've decided to keep the offices open for counseling, because if we don't do that, then we might start seeing deaths happening. You know, one thing I'll say that the church has helped a lot. And I will say by this way, we have Christians who are babies. There are those who are mature, but especially the ones who are baby, even if they are grown-ups, these are children need food every now and then. So when this person goes for a Sunday service, even if he was so angry during the week because of his wife or because of her husband, something happens in such instances when the word of God is preached, and maybe the situation is calmed. So they are able to take another 1 week. But now, many people are not be able to access the word of God directly, especially for these people who are young in faith. And that is where you can see a lot of this kind of violence happening. And I don't know, because we may not be able to reach. You know, I said I was doing a study, 7 million Facebook users. And then we have 1.4 households in Kenya which have TV. Each household having about 4 people. So that is about 5.6 million who can be able to access the television. So we still have a big number who may not be able to hear the word of God, and they have not trained themselves to study the word of God for themselves. And that is where you can see some of these challenges coming up. But I say, also, COVID has come to teach us a lot of things. Because those people who are used to be fed every time now has to go and research the word of God and know how to stay with their families. We have met. There are good situations. We have seen families, especially in the estates, who are waking up. A man, a wife, children, and they are exercising together.
Yes.
This is something that we've not seen before. We are seeing families, a man and a wife and his children walking together, having devotions, and people are calling and saying, today we are having a devotion in our homes, praying together. I spoke to some young children, boys, and they were saying the greatest joy they are having this time is that they have a long holiday and they have seen their fathers and their mothers at home at this particular time.
Because they're very busy.
Yes. So I would say we need to be positive, especially in this time.
Yes.
Let us look, if you're a man, if you're a woman, let us look on how we can make our relationships better. And as I said before, looking for a counselor or for help does not mean you are weak. I see men, when they have cars broken down along the way, asking for people to come and help them push. It doesn't mean you're a weak man. Now, if your marriage goes down, you can also look for men and women who can be able to assist you. If you're a woman, stop hiding outside and saying, I'll not ask for help. This is the time to reach out. But again, I also say, we have professional counselors, and we also have people who are not professional. My advice would be to those who are not so professional, please keep confidentiality, because we have a lot of people who come and say, the reason why I cannot talk to so-and-so, or even my pastor, is because next Sunday I hear it as a sermon. Now, you hinder that person from ever talking to you. So I would say, even those who are doing counseling, do it with a lot of secrecy. Yes.
Yes, and I support that. I believe that this is the best time to actually mend fences, or even actually to put some energy into your relationship.
Yes.
Want us to focus now on the reopening of the churches.
Yes.
So many countries have done that. They have eased restriction, but of course they are keeping the distance. For Kenya, is it the right time?
I would say, I would first begin by appreciating the government, because the steps they have taken so far has seen the predictions that were made before on numbers not actually being realized. So we would say, somehow, there has been a lot of work that has helped to maintain the spread of COVID-19. Secondly, I want again to appreciate the step that was taken by the president, that when this thing came, even before it had begun to spread, they said, let us go on our knees and have a session of repentance. And we saw it in State House. That alone, that honor of God that was made by this nation, I believe has played a big role in what we have seen. Now, coming to the reopening of churches.
Okay. Before we get to that, kindly allow me to interject. We need to cross over where the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union are having a joint press briefing in Lavington. Continue sending in your comments or where you're watching from. Thomas Maluga, thank you so much. You're watching from Nairobi. Perpetua Nduta, you're watching from Kangemi. Keep them coming, but first of all, let's head to that presser. Okay, I'm told that is not ready yet. The reopening.
Yes.
Yes.
I was saying, there has been a lot of work that was done, and I say the repentance that was done by this nation, led by the president himself, was a big step. That honor of God does a lot of things. And secondly, I want to appreciate that there are a lot of pastors and bishops and religious leaders that are praying They are having prayer chain praying for this nation.
Yeah, just a minute. I'm told that press conference has just started. Let's first of all listen in. We'll get back to the reopening of churches. Channel 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, as you have already been informed, the partners in this process have done an analytical report, which report now is ready for launching and submission to the National Emergency Response Committee on Coronavirus, as was established by the President. So just a brief of what is contained in the report. His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, via the Executive Order number 2 of 2020, established the National Emergency Response Committee on Coronavirus as a framework to upscale and coordinate Kenya's level of preparedness and capacity to prevent, respond to, and contain COVID-19 pandemic. The Kenya National Union of Teachers, that's NAT, the University's Academic Staff Union, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, in collaboration with the Medical Pharmacists Doctors Union, Forum for Africa Women Educationists, that's the FAWE, and Elimu Tuitakayo Network, of course enriched by significant inputs from parents of children with disability. These are parents who really felt excluded, particularly when they saw that KISE, which normally represents their interest, was not included in the consultation that was initiated. So they've put together this report to inform debate and decision-making in education sector regarding reopening and management of schools, colleges, and universities in the phase of COVID-19. We submit this report to the National Emergency Response Committee on Coronavirus in good faith to inform discussion and decision-making on managing education sector within this COVID-19 period, and particularly when matters of reopening of schools, colleges, and universities and guiding teaching and learning are on the table for discussion. The report benefits heavily from incisive desk analysis by a panel of experts, raw data analysis of responses from across the country by teachers, lecturers, non-teaching staff, frontline human rights defenders, doctors, and health experts in the field of coronavirus. It has taken on board useful analysis of relevant information and experiences from the global context, including but not limited to international health expert opinion, multi-state agencies guidelines, and unions from other countries and jurisdictions. We appreciate the leadership given to this process by NAT SG, that's Wilson Sosion, the Executive Director of Kenya Human Rights Commission, George Kegoro, WASU Secretary General Constantine Wasonga in the process. We also are very grateful to the contributions made by Professor Florentius Koech and team, that's Moy University, Professor George Osanjo and team, Boaz Waruku, that's myself, Dr. Chibanzi Mwashonda and team, that's a team of doctors, and Ms. Jedida Arutere, that's a renowned researcher, John Mashio, Terry Omondi, Wycliffe Ebole Omushe, and John Matiang, among others, for their respective roles that they've played in production of this report. The critical factors under consideration. One, on determining when and how to reopen schools, colleges, and universities, the report calls for an objective, inclusive, and comprehensive data-driven process of ascertaining
how schools, teachers, lecturers, non-teaching staff, pupils, students, and communities are coping with the closures and the pandemic. 2, basic considerations should be placed on the best interest of the child, teachers, lecturers, education service personnel, and overall public health consideration, as informed by assessment of the associated benefits and risks, and the cross-sectoral and contextual specific evidence, including those sectors of education, public health, and the socio-economic factors. 3, among the factors to consider, the enhanced support and flexibility that should be given to teachers, lecturers, and non-teaching staff, especially those who work in remote areas or marginalized communities, to ensure that disadvantaged children do not miss out on quality education in the wake of coronavirus pandemic. 4, trends in COVID-19 infections, containment measures, search for vaccines and cure, and the pattern of spread, especially with the projections of peak seasons in Kenya and the surrounding countries expected to be in August 2020. 5, among the factors, and the level of preparedness and capacity to prevent, respond to, and contain COVID-19 pandemic by the government of Kenya. And 6, the expert advice. We are saying the scientific facts and considerations are among the factors to be considered here. Our recommendations, you'll be having the comprehensive report, so that's why you realize we're just summarizing components and parts of it. So our recommendations to the National Emergency Response Committee on Coronavirus. 1, ensure that COVID-19 curve of infection is flattened fast as per the recommendations, the analysis done by COECH team, to assure safety of teachers, lecturers, support personnel, and learners before reopening of schools, colleges, and universities. Experts do project that the peak of the curve is in August, and viably schools can not reopen until September 2020. 2, based on the UNESCO guidelines for school reopening, the decision on reopening of schools should be guided by the best interest of the child and overall public health considerations, based on an assessment of the associated benefits and risks, and informed by cross-sectoral and context-specific evidence, including education, public health, and socio-economic factors. No evidence is actually available at present to confirm that the government is in compliance or moving towards being compliant with this provision. Number 3, among the recommendations, that the government should do mass testing for all students and teachers of boarding schools before reopening schools once the pandemic is contained, and those who are sick are allowed to stay home until full recovery before resumption of learning. 4, that an elaborate and solid plan on occupational safety and health assessment for all schools by safety consultants from the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health, that should be undertaken. 5, that periodic risk assessment of the teachers based on the World Health Organization guidelines for risk assessments for health care workers. 6, set up treatment facilities to handle any cases that might arise to ensure access to health services by teachers, lecturers, non-teaching staff, and learners. 7, a decision on reopening schools should be considered as a stepwise process that requires very skillful, careful, and cautious selection to deal with situations prior to reopening, during the process of reopening, and management of the schools, colleges, and universities once they are reopened. We are calling for an inclusive, objective, and non-discriminatory framework for managing this process that should be set up immediately. 8, prior to reopening of schools, we appeal to the inputs of key stakeholders to prepare critical policies, procedures and financial plans needed to improve schooling with a focus on safe operations, including strengthening remote learning practices. 9, as part of the reopening process, the government needs to adopt proactive approaches to reintegrate marginalized and out-of-school children, to invest in water. They also need to invest in sanitation and hygiene to mitigate the risks and focus on remedial education to compensate for lost instructional time. This becomes actually more apparent in the northeastern Kenya rather, where public schools started the year with huge shortage of teachers due to the security-related challenges. 10, with schools reopened, a mechanism to actively monitor health indicators, expanding focus on well-being and protection should be implemented. We are calling on the government to invest in strengthening pedagogy and appropriate teaching and learning, including knowledge on infections, transmission, and prevention. 11, while considering the above, we are calling on an objective, inclusive, and comprehensive data-driven process of ascertaining how schools, teachers, non-teaching staff, students, and communities are coping with closures and the pandemic, which becomes a critical prerequisite to any determination on the reopening of those learning institutions. We actually would appeal that they copy the kind of rapid response survey that was done by the partners here.
That is a joint presser by the Kenya National Union of Teachers, UASU, Kenya National Human Rights Commission, and the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union in Lavington, talking about the effects of COVID-19 on learning and, of course, teaching, and learning and teaching, and also on training institution. They are giving some of the factors to be considered, or the government should consider, when reopening schools. Some of them, of course, flattening the curve before allowing students and teachers back to school. Safety of teachers and learners to be paramount, and of course, in the best interest of every stakeholder in the school. Mass testing of teachers and students before reopening in any case should first of all be dealt with before the student or the teacher is allowed. Of course, we'll bring you a much comprehensive report. As I've told you, it's a joint presser of 4 institutions right in Kenya. Well, we are coming back to our discussion today, and we are looking at the role of the church in the fight against COVID-19. And I'm joined by Dr. Pastor Julius Kimani, who is also a motivational speaker trying to put things into focus. And just before we went for that presser, we were talking about the reopening of the churches. And there are some of the factors that you are talking about that also should be considered.
Yes. I would say it would be important because, one, we've not... We cannot assume or imagine that this thing will come to an end tomorrow. And people need livelihoods, because sometimes we look at the church and we think that the church does not employ. We have schools that are being run by churches. And we have hospitals being run by churches. We have people working in churches within the organization. And all these people are looking up to the churches either reopening or something being done. But what I would say, we need, just like the gentleman from the NAR have said, we need to have the best interest of the member of the church.
Yes.
And that is where the measures have been taken. I've seen supermarkets.
Yes.
They're doing their good job, having the temperature guns, the sanitization, the cleaning of their hands, and these are measures that needs to be taken. And one thing that I would say, but I know the church leaders who are meeting with the government are proposing such things.
Yes.
We have to go to length to ensure that any person who enters that church has gone through those processes. And secondly, we have also to maintain that social distance, because I believe the greatest challenge we may have is that nobody knows. Maybe you are not able to communicate to all the members who is supposed to attend which service. And therefore, it is so important at this particular time for every person who is coming to the church to have a good understanding that there will be measures that are taken to ensure that anybody who gets in the church is safe. Secondly, we have things like ushers. They can no longer greet people now.
Yes.
So they have also to ensure that everybody coming into church sits at the right place. This is not where you can any longer say this is free sitting.
Yes.
There is a lot of things to be done, but I believe if things are done the way they have been done in the different industries, like the transport, I believe it can be okay.
Yes, and still on that, don't you think there will be a crowd control problems? Because looking at Easter, we've seen so many people during Easter. We've seen during Diwali and during Eid, a lot of people congregating, and we have had crowd controls issues.
Mm-hmm. I believe, you see, we may not be able to stop that completely, but I have also seen Kenyans at the same time.
Yes.
Because through this period, you have seen Kenyans, some of them taking time to take their social distance. And I think if all is communicated, that means the news, the TV stations that we have, when the reopening of the churches is coming up, then we have to start communicating what is required of each and every person. If people need to line up, even if it's a 1 kilometer line, then it has to be done in that particular way. So all measures have to be taken with a lot of seriousness. And for everybody that knows he's a member of the church, know that any step that is being taken, it's for their own good. So we must embrace a mentality of caring for that other person that is in the church.
What about our little angels for the Sunday schools? What will happen?
Wow.
That will be, leave alone the crowd control problem. This is actually a big problem, and I cannot leave my daughter or my son in my house and then go to church.
Now, this is my opinion. I believe a time has come when parents have to be the priest in the home.
Okay.
They have to be the priest in the home.
How is that?
God spoke and said, Abraham, I know he'll teach his children my ways.
Yes.
Justice and righteousness. Now, it is a high time the parents need to get back to that home, leave the child at home, because I believe it's a sensitive issue to bring children in church at this particular moment. Leave them at home. That's my opinion. Leave them at home. You as a parent take the responsibility of teaching those children the word of God. And you know that is the right way. That is actually the right way that's supposed to happen. So for now, I would, with a lot of care, I would not, and I said this is my opinion, I would not go for children at this moment attending church. Maybe teenagers, yes, because these are people who you can tell sit over there and they will be able to sit. But the small ones, I would recommend highly
for now. For now.
Yeah, for now.
And still on kids, we have kids who haven't gone to school. We have kids who are in school. We have kids in the universities. We have those who are looking for jobs.
Yes.
All of them now are at home. They have a lot of energy. How do we divert this energy? How can we use this energy they really have?
Let me give an example with myself. You know, somebody said, if that child is over energy or they are having issues and they are disturbing you, then you are responsible. There is something that you have not done to cut down on that energy. Personally, I have put a program with my wife. We say when they wake up in the morning, one of them is in high school, they have to go to study, they have to read.
Yes.
Up to around 1 or 2 o'clock. Then from 2 o'clock, they can have some time maybe watching television or doing something, or they can even step outside but keep social distancing because they also have friends.
Yes.
But we need to insist, because I've seen a lot of parents are neglecting the children and they are not putting mask on the children. And I try to imagine if one child was infected, would bring back an infection back to the house. But we are trying to maintain that. Then we have also introduced something we never knew that we could do, an exercise regime in the house. People jogging on the spot. So we are exercising with our children. By the time 7 o'clock in the evening is coming, the guys are tired. In fact,
just to sleep.
I have taken a role on doing that.
Okay.
So there has to be creativity.
Our own polices and pastors in the houses when it comes to our kids.
Exactly.
Okay, hold the thought. We're taking another short, quick break, but when we come back, we'll also be looking at what other parts of this country are offering at this moment. But when we come back, there's also the challenge of gifts, money, collection in church. We'll be able also to touch on that.
Unanipigia na reverse goal. Unajua ile kitu naweza reverse peke yake ni Land Rover nikiendea wahalifu mahali wako. Ndio wakucha wameingia kwa Land Rover chup chup. Lakini wewe kunipigia reverse goal. Why are you defrauding the government? No. Look for the airtime and call me. Okay?
Kupata police reverse, bonyeza *811 *960 #. Bonyeza *811 *960 #.
Unasikia?
Next on.
I am getting into this alliance only because of my mother.
Are you rejecting my proposal, Prince Justin?
It is not possible for me to not love Noor.
If this is the motive of this wedding, then I will remove all the chances for Princess Agnishika to bear a child, let alone bear a son.
Your Highness, Ashok and his...
The Juakari operators and others, our saloonists, our mamboga, our barbers, our economy to a large extent depends on you. We cannot allow Kenyans to die because of non-distancing in any sector. So those of you who are carrying out the hair-cutting business, in barbershops, in saloons, I am appealing to you today. Ensure that social distancing, fumigation of your working places, masks are used at all times. Just assume that everybody is positive and now deal with that situation. Participation of our citizens in the fight against the disease would be our key success factor.
Welcome back. This is News Check, where we are talking about the role of the church in the war against COVID-19. And on earlier we had talked about what measures should be taken when it comes to actually reopening the churches. Of course, we are going to be looking at more on those, but let's first of all hear what the Mombasa County Commissioner is talking about in Mombasa when it comes to team.
5 billion. The start date was 2nd May 2018, and by 2020 May, this project was supposed to be complete. But you know, it encountered a few challenges here and there, and we expect that by September, this project will be delivered to the people of Mombasa. The second project is Mombasa Port Area Road Development Project, Package 3, construction of Mtesa Kibundani section, that is Dongokundu. This one is being undertaken by China Civil Engineering Construction Company. The description of the scope of work: the total length of the Package 3 project road measures 6.86 kilometers of new dual carriageway and an interchange bridge. The total cost of this one is 4,052,569,875. The start date was March 2019. Expected time of completion is 1st March 2021. This one, of course, includes the bridge, which is being undertaken by a Japanese company. The third major project within Mombasa is the cruise ship terminal. This one is being undertaken by JILK Construction Company. The scope of the work is modification of sheds to provide essential services required of a modern cruise facility, and also provision of passenger access canopy from gangway to shed. The cost of this one is 1.027 billion, inclusive of VAT. Start time is 2018, expected time of completion 2020. So we are expected this one to be delivered anytime. Then we have the latest project to come our way. That is the Likoni floating bridge. This one is being done by China Road and Bridge Construction Corporation of China. The brief description of the scope of works: this construction of a floating bridge at the Likoni Channel. This one is expected to take less than 6 months. This one will assist our people to cross the ferry, that channel, without necessarily using the ferry service. So that is a project which will be delivered very soon, hopefully before the end of the year. Now we have the ongoing programs, the Kasi Mtaani program, popularly called Kasi Mtaani program, but the English version of the name is National Hygiene Program, NHB. This was announced by His Excellency the President and is aimed at guaranteeing the youth employment and also taking care of the environment and combating the effects of COVID-19 disease. This program is spearheaded by Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. In Mombasa, the following areas have been identified as areas where the program is being undertaken: Ziwa la Ng'ombe in Nyali, where we have recruited 2,000 youth; Kaa Chonjo in Vita, 2,000;
Apologies for that technical hitch, but that was Mombasa County Commissioner talking about the numerous projects that are currently underway in Mombasa. Of course, some have met some challenges because of the COVID-19, but he says in September they will be resuming. Some of the projects include the Kazi Mtaani project. We'll be getting that in our 1 p.m. News bulletin. Well, this is News Check, where we are discussing the role of the church in the war against COVID-19. And on our viewpoint question, do you support calls to open worship, houses of worship or worship centers in the country, churches, mosques, synagogues, in the wake of lessening of restrictions? Many countries have actually started easing restrictions, which include worship. And Dr. Julius Kimani is our guest today, who is also a pastor and a motivational speaker. And earlier, before we crossed over to Mombasa, we were talking about the challenges that will be posed when actually we are dealing with the church functions. Of course, we have even the choir, we have ushers, we have... there's also a time you might be touched by the Holy Spirit. the maintaining the 1 meter rule will be a challenge, because in other supermarket, once you're done, I'll come there, right?
Yes.
It's a big challenge.
So there is one thing I'll say.
Yes.
If you are to understand the word of God well.
Yes.
We read in 1 Corinthians, I think it's in chapter 14.
Yes.
It talks about that the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets. One thing I say, God is not an author of confusion, and God does not bring disorder.
Yes.
So I believe every person can be able to maintain his own self, his own vessel,
Yes.
with a lot of order and with no confusion. And I think that is why probably we even need to put 2 meters for in case somebody like that happens. But we realize even God himself commanded in the same book that let everything be done decently and in order. This is a time to emphasize that a lot. Because it does not mean that God will not hear our prayers if we change a few things. And one thing that we need to understand, a lot of things have to change. A lot of things have to change. We can no longer have maybe the choir members who are like 50 on the... Maybe we may have only 2 or 3 who are standing on that altar and keeping the distance.
Actually, we've seen that for the Anglican and the Catholic Church on Sundays. They have around 5 or 6 choir members, the whole church. Yes.
Just doing that. We've also been doing that. You just find that there are about 6 people when we are recording our online services.
Yes.
So these are things that are with us to stay. And everybody has got to be ready. And that is why I said before that information needs to be passed on. For bishops who have got many churches, I believe before reopening, there is a need to have a very serious meeting with all the pastors under you, whichever way it has to be done, that they know this very clearly, so that nobody begins to break the rule. And as I said before, it is so important to realize and to know from a depth of our hearts that the reopening is because of the need of that person who needs to come to the church. So let's have the interest of the other person in our minds as we take every step to reopen churches.
Dr. Kimani, let's now focus on the handling of money and offertory. We have gifts.
Yes.
This will also pose a big challenge. We've seen in matatus and in supermarkets, we have been told by the government that we should embrace wireless transactions. But don't you think it will pose a challenge?
That one will definitely. I will say there are quite a number of churches who have already gone that way in having pay bills, in having machines to swap if it is a bank transaction. But if we may not be able to eliminate cash in churches. And that is where I say again my opinion, where we need to have maybe if there are 2 or 3 people who are handling money, especially in counting, then we have sanitize the money. And after they have done the work of counting and all that, also they themselves need to sanitize. I think this is a measure that can be taken because it is not happening, it is not like a shop. Actually, church is easier because if it's an offering, it is done at once. So in a shop, you have people coming in. There could be even 50 people coming in a day, bringing different time. But this one is at once, and therefore it will only happen if anything has to be done to cleanse the money or do that, then it will have to be done once. I believe that can be taken care of. Yes.
And the Holy Communion does play a key role in majority of churches.
Yes.
And of course, that will also pose another big challenge.
It is a big challenge. And you know, sometimes I look at the scriptures, especially when it comes to communion. And the word of God says that the disciples, after Jesus left, I'm just getting a bit scriptural, but they said they went from house to house breaking communion, house to house. It is a time when, as church leaders, we begin to teach our own people on how to partake communion in our homes. Because it doesn't need to be, and I know there could be a controversy in that area, but if you read the book of Acts, you will see communion was done from house to house, not even in the church, which is a good thing that is still done in church. But if you have to partake communion, it cannot be passed now. Therefore, then teach your people to do it at home. If not, then let it stay.
And in the wake of Italy being one of the worst hit countries, I remember the Pope did say, urge people worldwide, regardless of color, regardless of religion, to reach out to God through acts of fasting, prayer, or even charity. Shouldn't we first of all embrace that? Because actually, we as Africans,
yes,
even the World Health Organization said they are a little bit scared we might not be able to control the scourge.
Now, I believe if you look at Africa, I think we have been doing better than even some of those nations.
Indeed, that's true.
We have been doing better. And I also think that God has some mercy when he looks at the facilities that we have. And I will just interject and say, this is also a call to our own governments, that it's a high time they put priorities of medical facilities in our own nation. And at the same time, as I say, people are praying. I know quite a number of church leaders who are praying through WhatsApp groups. Personally, we have in the church where I minister, we have a prayer chain for 6 hours, praying for this nation. And I believe that is why today we are having this conversation, because before there was nobody talking about church reopening. But I believe there is a part of prayer, but we cannot live in the caves forever.
Yes.
We can't live in the caves. We've got to step out. Now, that is where now the faith comes in, where now you believe in the word of God and say, because God has said, no evil shall come near me. I will do everything. I will sanitize. I will eat well. I will exercise. But there's a place I live for God. Because you don't know who has it.
It's true.
You don't know who has it. So there's a place. You can't be able to say, this is corona coming my way, so let me take off.
Yes.
This is something that is invisible. And sometimes the invisible things are fought with invisible weapons. And prayer is one of them. And hence the need for people, because there is a lot of power in unity.
Yes.
And one of the things that we need to pray, even as we are praying for COVID-19 and our nation and everything, we need to pray for our doctors. Because in Kenya, I have seen innovations that we have not seen before. We have seen ventilators being made by Kenyans. We have seen masks that today would be having a shortage if you are relying on other countries.
Indeed.
But today, almost every Kenyan can be able to afford a mask and access a mask. We have seen creativity. So what I'm saying, at this time, we also need to pray to God that God may even give our own doctors solutions to this thing. And I believe they are doing some stuff in Cambridge and all that. How much more if we went before God and we told God, give us solutions? Kenya can become, I believe if Kenya discovered the medicine for COVID, it would also change our economy.
Indeed.
And who said we cannot be?
For the better.
Who said? So the doctors in Kenya also need to believe in terms and believe that they can also change a few, get deeper and deeper into research. Let government also support a lot of research in this issue, because discovery has no monopoly.
Indeed. Even the leader of the free world, Donald Trump, did say churches now are essential services. Should the same thing happen right here in our country?
Yes. Do you know, one thing I will say, something that people cannot do without, for example, more than 1 month. You find, if you come here to the city center on a Sunday afternoon, you'll find almost there is nobody.
Yes.
These people must be somewhere. All these numbers must be congregating somewhere. That means if they are meeting in different places, it could be churches, then that is a good area where we can start by beating this COVID-19. Because there is nothing as powerful as information. But to get that information can be challenging. But when I sit with, let's say, 500 people in a church service, and I take seriously this information, and for every pastor decides that for a few minutes you're going to talk about how to manage your own health, you'll be shocked at how things will change in our nation. And they are changing. They are changing. And we are getting better. And I believe that at the end of the day, as a nation, we are going to conquer this. Yes.
And still on the national prayers, do you think we should do more on them? We should actually, we decide every month we're going to be having one or two, because we've already had one. And I think we should keep the faith and keep praying.
I think it's a good idea. You know, you can never overpray. You cannot say, now I have overprayed. The only time you can say, my prayer, I'm not praying any longer, is when you get an answer. We get an example from the guy called Elijah. There was famine in Israel for 3 years. It took one man to go on his knees and pray until the rain came. He stopped praying when they saw. So even in Kenya, If we can organize more prayer breakfast, let us have people being serious. There is nothing wrong. Yes, regionals. We have a king like David that we all know of. The guy would go to the temple, I think, about 7 to 10 times a day. So once in a month or twice in a month or maybe bi-monthly would not affect anybody.
Indeed.
As long as the budget is maintained low.
We will be looking at that later. Perhaps going back to the family setup.
Yes.
And the church, of course, you at the moment you're not able to reach as many people as you are able to reach earlier on. And now we are prophesying that perhaps from next week, of June, things could be a little eased and a little better. So how are you going to help these families? Because at least now we have more time. Now perhaps we can make arrangements on how you can be helping people, because these cases have risen in the last couple of months.
I think one of the key things
this should be one of the yardstick to measure or to reduce the cases of gender violence.
You know, one of the things that I know, when people, you see, there are people who are social, naturally, and there are people who will not love public spaces. When you deny some people their freedom, like what COVID has done, I would not say the government, it's COVID that put us in that situation.
Yes.
There are people who get agitated, just like when some wild animals, when they are put in a closure, they get more aggressive than anything. And I believe there are some people who will some of these things will come to an end when they hear maybe churches are reopening.
Yes.
Like, for example, when we listen to our president, and sometimes he makes statements when they are waiting for a lockdown, and it does not happen. You even see happiness around people.
Yes.
It's so easy to make people happy and to bring some of this end. But as I said before, we need, as religious leaders, to be so prepared.
Yes.
We have to empower our counseling departments, because personally we may not be able to handle the cases that may come.
Yes.
Maybe there was infidelity, maybe there was incest. We have had such cases because of people being at home. A father has abused a stepchild, and those things now will really come up. We really come up when the economy begins to reopen, when the churches begins to reopen. But what I'm saying, just like the doctors today, they have been able to be at the front line, and the nurses at the front line of ensuring that COVID-19 is contained. Every challenge, we will come at those bridges, we will prepare as much as we can, and there's a time you leave it to God. But we have to do as much as we can. Counsel as much as we can. Speak the word of encouragement, because what people are going through now is discouragement. There are some people who have given up completely in life. I got messages of people sending, somebody is telling you, I feel like committing suicide because I don't have a job, I have 2 children, and I don't know what to do. Now, hope, it's a time for us to speak hope. Every time, and I was saying, we need also to keep on emphasizing that there are people who are also recovering.
Yes.
Because we can be so negative until it takes away our energy.
Yes.
That when we see cases, yes, those are real cases, but we also need to celebrate those recoveries that are happening. That means there's a doctor who did something somewhere and helped that person.
Yes.
There's a person who did something, and I wish that some of these people who have recovered, I'm very sure their steps they took, because what they share, their stories, can encourage somebody else who is going. So I would, in a very ssensitive way, because I know there's stigmatization.
Actually, I wanted to ask you on the stigmatization. We've seen people being stigmatized, people who have had COVID. We've seen people who have been quarantined when they go back to their homes, or people who have been isolated.
You know, one thing that and I'm sad, because COVID is not like even, sorry to say, like a sexually transmitted disease. There's something, somebody took an action and they got it. And of course, not everybody who gets an STD went for it. Some of them, it's brought to them. But what I'm trying to say is that nobody steps out to go looking for COVID. And therefore, for any person who is causing sadness and stigmatization to a family, we are not doing the right thing. Because these are people, you find even people are afraid of communicating or asking how is that family doing. This is a time we need to support those people. You may not meet them physically, but at least tell them you are praying for them or you are thinking about them. If you can be able to send even food to those families, it would be so important. Because I try to imagine somebody coming home and the entire family, nobody in the estate wants to get closer to them. It can be very, very hard. Let us as Kenyans, the same way we have stopped maybe stigmatizing the people who had HIV, we have seen changes.
Yeah, we've made strides.
We have made strides.
Yes.
People, you'll hear this person has got HIV, nobody will run away from them. We also need to embrace that still humanity and selflessness. We may not go touching them, but let them know that we are thinking about them and that we are praying for them. And the reason why we are keeping the distance away from them is because those are national guidelines that we need to do and take. But I wish we can make sure that they know that people have concerns. And this is a place where the church has got to play a very major role. If you're a pastor, I'm not suggesting that you take a blind faith and you go and you lay hands, because even the government may not allow you that.
Yeah.
But at least we need to be at the forefront of encouraging these people, because they need encouragement. Because COVID-19, looking at it, has come to a place where if you get it, that's the time you realize it is you alone and what you believe in, and nobody comes near to you apart from the medical doctors. It is also a time for the people who have probably gone through COVID-19 to realize that you as a person, you've got to encourage yourself. You have to be your own supporter. You have to be the one who claps for yourself. You have to be the one that wakes up in the morning and say, I'll face another day, and fight your battle, I will say like a man. They say like a man, but fight it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And still on prayer,
yes.
This pandemic has been taunted that it is already in the Bible, and some even say that 2 Chronicles chapter 13.
Yes.
You must have seen that verse trending.
Yes.
Talking about how these scourges, because we have turned our ways against God. Kindly share some light on that.
You know, I will say one thing, and I'm just being spiritual a little bit. There was no sickness before man sinned. That means sickness came as a result of the sin of man. So sickness is actually so spiritual. And the only way to deal with sickness, number one, is the step that we took as a nation, repentance. Again, I always say, we can never over-repent. We can never. Because every single day, we make mistakes. You tell a person, I'll meet you at 12 o'clock, you meet them at 12:05. That's already a lie. You didn't make it on time. So as humans, we've got our own weaknesses. I would not say it is wrong to go on our knees and repent and continue repenting. But we also need to understand we have a God who is full of mercy. Because if he was to count all the sins that are in this nation, there are people who would not be alive. There are people who would not be alive. So we also have to embrace and understand that the mercies of God are real. But I will say, I have had like 2 cases now. People coming back, they look for you, they call you, people you don't even know, and they tell you, now I'm stopping this kind of behavior. I have discovered that I need to be a better person, and there is nothing as powerful as when somebody changes. So, COVID-19, I have always said, it has come with its positivities. There are people who have become better men in their homes. There are women who have learned to cook because they had given up on cooking. You cook food, the husband is not there to eat, the children are not there to eat, but now they are back home. So people have been rekindled. There are people who have discovered businesses. Like now, the guys who are selling the masks. Who knew that they could? There are people who never knew they could make masks. For who? But now they are making masks. There are people who are making sanitizers, and I believe sanitizers will be there with us for a very long time. I heard our CS the other day say that our PPEs are actually better than some of the imported. Kenyans are making them. So there are businesses that will come up. The key thing here about everybody, whether you're a businessman, whether you're a teacher, whether you're an accountant, you have to adapt and change. If you sit back and keep on looking at saying, serikali fanya hivi, oh God has let us down, whatever, challenges come to cause us to rise up. There are many churches today that never had online services.
Yes.
In fact, they had never invested. And today they have started. And they will not stop, because after this, many churches will not stop online. Because there are people who will say, "Mi siendi kanisa,
Yes.
I'm afraid of COVID." So they will be watching online. So something good is also coming out of this whole situation.
As we wind up, man of God.
Yes.
Camera 3.
Yes.
Talk to Kenyans who are very much hopeful
Yes.
that we are going to ease the restrictions and be able to attend church.
What I will say to every person that is watching me at this particular moment, it is be full of selflessness. Let us think about the other person. The reason why we have these restrictions, number one, it is for your own personal good. Number two, it's for your your family good. Number three, it's also for the community. So whatever the government is doing, it is doing it for our own good. Okay. Let us continue praying for the reopening of the churches, but be ready to observe the guidelines that are set down.
Yes.
And that will work for us.
Okay, just before we wind up, we are going back to Lavington, where Sosion is speaking. The NAT-WASU, Kenya National Human Rights Commission, and Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union are having a presser.
Egerton and the rest. And the Employment and Labor Code has so directed. So we urge all the employers, whether in private or government or public, not to dare for the entire duration of COVID. That is already protected in the international protocols of ILO and UNESCO. So you'd rather know that. That includes even you people of the media. Your jobs must be protected, everybody's job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And the report, please, can you give it?
Secretary General Sosion there, of course, they were giving recommendations on some of the factors to be considered if we are going to reopen schools anytime soon, because the COVID-19 has made it impossible to do that. Thank you so much for watching. Let's continue this conversation on the social media. We have been speaking to Dr. Pastor Julius Kimani, who not only being a pastor, is also a motivational speaker, giving us some insight just in case we are to reopen churches. I'm Ben Troinjwe, and Lindsay Odingo has been our sign language interpreter for this afternoon. But don't go away, the Swahili version, Tamrini, is coming up next.
We want you to move both the meth and the money.
What's in it for me besides more cash?
A lot more cash.
Guys, we got company rolling in from the west, hard and fast.
I want Strager and the rest of his punk pilots in handcuffs by sundown.
You do what you gotta do to get him back. You got my friend killed.
Running drugs made it happen.
I heard that you settled down, that you found a girl and you're married now. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best for you too. Don't forget me, I beg. I remember you say sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it
Next on.
I am getting into this alliance only because of my mother.
Are you rejecting my proposal, Prince Justin?
It is not possible for me to not love Noor.
If this is the motive of this wedding, then I will remove all the chances for Princess Agnishika to bear a child, let alone bear a son.
Your Highness, Ashok and his...
Since late last year, the coronavirus COVID-19 has emerged as a serious healthcare threat. This is an infection that has gone global and no one has been spared. The government, through the Ministry of Health, has put in measures to keep Kenyans safe against COVID-19, which is currently rampant around the world, with new confirmed infections and death cases daily. Such sanitization and screening of visitors at this border post and across every entry point in the country is very vital in preventing the spread of the disease in the country.
I'm very happy about the screenings that are going on in Tanzania and Kenya. I think it's very proactive that you're thinking about stopping it at the border so that it does not spread.
It is scary that a single cough here can lead to an outbreak of epic proportions. In order to prevent that, the government has instituted measures to keep Kenyans safe.
The facility has all the equipments you need, from handling a basic patient up to ICU setting.
However, you also have a role to play in preventing spread of infections.
Members of the public are encouraged to remain vigilant as the risk is still high. Let's maintain basic hand and respiratory hygiene.
It's just our general hygiene, okay? And that now means at workplaces, we should ensure that our work surfaces are clean.
Always ensure that nimefanya proper sanitation ya mikono. Every time na board matatu, lazima ni sanitize mikono.
We have faced many severe challenges as a nation, and we have always found a way to rise above them. COVID-19 is no different, and we will overcome the pandemic. Stop coronavirus. Follow all directives from the Ministry of Health. Wash your hands properly.
This Wednesday on KBC Channel 1.
So why are you telling me all this? Because people will come looking for you. They will throw fame and fortune at your feet.
Nilijifunza leso.
Na ulijifunza kupigana ndondi.
Nimekuwa nikitrain. Round this, lazima nishinde.
The Indian told me that you were going to be my ruin. And you are, Elena. Ever since I met you, all I've done is try to woo you. And all you've ever done is reject me and despise me.
Hey, you have to pay for that. Stop it, please, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Teacher, you are not understanding.
Some of you are about to have the worst day of your pathetic lives.
And who gave you the right to speak to people like that?
You guys, leave me alone. I don't know you anymore.
Can we talk privately?
Leave me alone.
You guys focus, eh?
I have a billion you can be a lily vanning guy.
We are trying to focus here.
No singing in this classroom. Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Yote ndawaidu iko tu sawa kwa macho yako.
Unataka kuwako?
Ati nini?
Why are you people shouting? Are you okay?
Mwanamke ninakuona sana. Ni wanaume hapa Mombasa wameisha.
Ni nini mbaya? Nowadays we have so many unfaithful people.
What?
We need to talk about her every time we are together.
And be very careful the way you address me.
Zako zinakuangaje? Huwezi kaa dakika mbili hata bila kuteta.
You will all sign new contracts. And I am supposed to be briefed.
What? Taki ujinga.
The Juakari operators and others, our saloonists, our mamboga, our babas, our economy to a large extent depends on you. We cannot allow Kenyans to die because of non-distancing in any sector. So those of you who are carrying out the hair cutting business in barber shops, in saloons, I am appealing to you today. Ensure that social distancing, fumigation of your working places, masks are used at all times. Just assume that everybody is positive and now deal with that situation. Participation of our citizens in the fight against the disease would be our key success factor.
I heard that you settled down, that you found a girl and you're married now. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best for you too. Don't forget me, I beg. I remember you say sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts instead. Sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts.
We want you to move both the meth and the money.
What's in it for me besides more cash?
A lot more cash.
Guys, we got company rolling in from the west hard and fast.
I want Strager and the rest of his punk pilots in handcuffs by sundown.
You do what you gotta do to get him back. You got my friend killed.
Running drugs made it happen.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Hassan tena amefanya nini tena? Hassan mimi naona sasa hivi ananitafutia kifo tu, Hassan ananitafutia mimi sijui nataka nini.
Hivi ndio vitu sasa vya kumvua nguo peupe huyo. Acha kwanza tupate
Nafanya sign.
Zimekatika dakika 7 baada ya saa 6 saa zetu za Afrika Mashariki, wakati mwafaka wa kujitosa kwenye tamrini ya Channel 1, kipindi ambacho na kienzi zaidi hapa kwenye runinga yenye ushawishi mkubwa KBC Channel 1. Na kama ilivyo ada na desturi, tumekuandalia mingi mtazamaji kutoka pembe tofauti za homo nchini na hata ugaibuni kuhusiana na hali halisi kuhusu gonjwa hatari la corona. Kumbuka kwamba hapo jana katibu mwandamizi katika Wizara ya Afya Dr. Rashid Aman alithibitisha visa vingine 62 vya maambukizi na kupelekea idadi ya watu ambao wameambukizwa gonjwa hili kufikia 1348, huku juhudi zikiendelea kuwekwa kupambana na janga hili. Hata hivyo tunakukaribisha kwa moyo mkunjufu katika tamrini, lakini kabla ya haya yote tuangazie shajara. Naam, hizo ni baadhi ya taarifa ambazo tumekuandalia hapa kwenye tamrini ya Channel 1. Karibu, naitwa Timothy Kipnusu, mfasiri wa lugha ya ishara ni Susan Thuku. Kumbuka kwamba unaweza kuzungumza nasi kupitia mitandao ya kijamii kwenye kurasa yetu wa Facebook KBC Channel 1, kwenye Twitter @KBC Channel 1 na @Kipnusu Timothy. Mapendekezo yako ni yapi kuhusiana na vita dhidi ya gonjwa hatari la corona? Mtazamaji, vile vile hii leo tangazia kwa kiduchu hali halisi ya mambo kuhusiana na gonjwa hili, hasa baada ya kiongozi wa taifa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta kuonyesha dalili ya kuweza kufungua au kutoa ile amri ya kutotoka nje na kufunguliwa kwa kaunti mbalimbali ambazo zimewekwa kufuli kudhibiti visa vya maambukizi hapa nchini. Kwenye kitengo cha mahojiano basi nitakuwa nazungumza na Charles Bilali ambaye ni mtaalamu wa masuala ya uongozi na siasa, ili aweze kutupatia usemi wake kuhusiana na hali halisi kuhusiana na gonjwa hatari la corona na vile vile yanayojiri kwenye siasa, ikizingatiwa kwamba yeye ni mtaalamu wa masuala ya siasa. Karibu sana Bilali kwenye kitengo cha mahojiano. Na kwanza kabisa gumzo ambayo inateka anga kwa sasa ni kuhusiana na ile tamko la kiongozi wa taifa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta. Wakenya wamekuwa wakisubiria kwa hamu na gamu, nyuta na mache, kwamba amri ya kutoka nje iondolewe, kaunti mbalimbali ziweze kufunguliwa, manake wengi wanalalama kwamba hali ya uchumi midorora, hawawezi kuweka chakula mezani kwa watoto wao na masuala kama hayo. Zungumzia hali halisi na pengine kuna uwezekano na pengine itasaidia kuweza kurejesha hali ya uchumi nchini.
Ni kweli, asante sana kwa kunialika. Bwana Rais uliposikia alisema ya kwamba kutakuwa na ulegevu, atalegeza kidogo ile kamba. Lakini je, nafikiri kama watu wananchi wa Kenya walisikia vizuri akisema ya kwamba ugonjwa ukienea atakuwa ni yeye mshtakiwa
wa kunyoshewa vidole.
Atakuwa ni yeye mshtakiwa. Kwa shauri utamnyoshia kidole nani? Kiongozi wa taifa wakiwemo wakina Matiang'i. Ndio maana mara mingi anapoongea anaongea kwa niaba ya Wakenya. Na amesema ya kwamba kuna uwezekano akalegeza kamba. Lakini swali, je, Wakenya watafuata ile sheria ambaye imewekwa na Wizara ya Afya? Wengine watakeuka ile sheria. Tumewaona wengi wakija saa zingine wanatoa barakoa yao, ama ukipenda kwa Kiswahili sanifu inaitwa vitamvua ama kitamvua. Wanakitoa, wanakiweka katika chini ya kidevu chao, wakiongea, wakitembea. Wengine hawaoshi mikono. Na ndiyo maana Rais anasema ya kwamba akifungua lazima kutakuwa na ule ukali wa sheria sasa.
Naam, unapodokeza kwamba kuhusiana na ukaidi wa Wakenya, manake ni kawaida rais mstaafu mwenda zake Daniel Toroitich arap Moi alidokeza kwamba Wakenya ni wakaidi, ikizingatia kwamba vile vile kiongozi wa taifa alisema kwamba atakapochukua hatua hiyo lazima atakuwa amefanya mashauriano na wataalamu wa masuala ya afya, wizara husika, ili kuweza kufungua pengine kaunti mbalimbali na kuweza kuondoa ile amri ya kutotoka nje. Kwa mtazamo wako, unaunga mkono kufunguliwa au kidogo unaona kwamba visa vya maambukizi vitaendelea kuenea, ikizingatia kwamba Wakenya wana mapuuza mengi zaidi kuhusiana na ile amri?
Ni kweli, mimi kidogo kwa shauri uchumi umeteremka mno.
Naam.
Nitaunga mkono ifunguliwe. Naam. Lakini inapofunguliwa ama wanapolegeza kamba, wasilegeze sana. Waweke vikwazo fulani vya kisheria. Ukipatikana una kitamvua ama umekaa karibu na mwenzako bila kukaa mbali ile mita ambayo imewekwa, unashtakiwa hapo hapo. Alafu kuwe pia na nidhamu. Kuwe na nidhamu ya kwamba ukiingia pahali ni lazima unawe mikono, na wasiwache ile kuna kile chombo cha kukumulika kama joto lako liko juu ama liko chini. Wasiwache hayo mazoea. Kwa shauri, kama corona tutakaa naye, ni kweli tutakaa na corona kwa muda mrefu, sio muda mchache sasa. Angalia, juzi kulikuwa na visa 72 juzi. Jana vikawa 62, vikateremka tu kwa 10 peke yake. Unanielewa? Sasa hapa huu ugonjwa ni hatari na uko na sisi, na ni lazima tubadilishe mwenendo ama tabia ambaye sisi wenyewe tulikuwa tumeizoea hapo kitambo. Ni lazima tunawe mikono, ni lazima tubakishe ile nafasi ya mtu kwa mtu, na ni lazima tuzingatie sheria za Wizara ya Afya.
Naam, kuhusiana vile bado na kiongozi wa taifa ile kudokeza kwamba takriban shilingi bilioni 63.5 zitaweza kutolewa ili kufanikisha kurejesha hali halisi, kusaidia watu ambao wamekabiliwa vilivyo. Pengine zungumzia kwa kiduchu, fedha hizi zitasaidia pakubwa au mapendekezo yake yatakuwa yapi kuhusiana na swala hili?
Rais ameidhinisha bilioni kama 53.5 kama 54. Hiyo itapiga jeki uchumi. Lakini bajeti yetu ya Kenya unajua inasemekana iko trillion. Yani ni zaidi ya ile. Lakini ni bora kushinda kuliko mkono wazi, si kweli? Kwa shauri Waswahili wasema kwamba mkono mtupu haulambwi. So hii karibu bilioni 54 itasaidia sana kupiga jeki hasa upande wa uchumi wetu. Ingaje ni ndogo ndio. Lakini pia rais angelifanya juu chini. Na najua hata kuna kuna masuala mengine pia amjui. Ya kwamba rais leo katika wizara zile za administration ama za machifu na ma-PC na ma-DCC wetu, ma-CCC wetu, kuna wale ambao waliandikishwa pale wanapatiwa kila Alhamisi ama Jumatano 1,000, wengine wanapatiwa 2,000. Wale ambao kufanikisha kusaidia kununua vyakula ndani ya nyumba. Kuna wale ambaye kabisa hawana pesa za kununua hicho chakula, na wakipata hizo chakula, hasa kwetu kama pale ambapo napotoka mimi, pale upande wa Msambweni, Kinondo, watu wanapatiwa zile pesa. Kuna baadhi ya watu ambaye wanapatiwa zile pesa na zinawasaidia sana katika uchumi pia wao na kununua vitu nyumbani.
Na pengine zungumzia vile vile umedokeza kwamba maeneo ambayo wewe unatoka binafsi, manake lazima umeweza kupiga msasa yale yanayotendeka kule kwenye gatuzi hilo la Kwale. Bila shaka nafahamu fika kwamba hapo jana Wizara ya Afya ilithibitisha kaunti hiyo kuwa nambari ya 3 kwa visa vya maambukizi. Pengine baada ya gatuzi la Nairobi, Mombasa na baadaye Kwale. Pengine kwa mtazamo wako, mikakati vile vile imewekwa vema, na pengine kaunti zingine ambazo zinaendelea kupambana na janga hili, je, unaona kwamba kuna masuala ambayo wanayafanya vema na yale ambayo kidogo unaona kwamba yanastahili kupigwa msasa, kukaza kamba, ni masuala yapi?
Kwanza pale kwetu Kwale, kwa mfano Kwale sisi tulikuwa na visa kama 2 ama 1 hivi kitambo.
Hapo jana bila shaka kulikuwa na visa 8.
Ndiyo, vikaongeze, ndio tunaona hizo visa 8. Lakini kumbuka ya kwamba hawa pia ni madereva ambaye ni kama wale ambaye wanatoka pale TZ wakiingia pande hii. Hawajapimwa pale. Inamaanisha ya kwamba tukipata vipimo vya kupima huu ugonjwa wa corona, basi watu wengi inaonekana watakuwa nao. Kwa shauri kama zaidi tuseme kama ni watu 10 ambao wanatembea, lazima kuna watu 2 ama watu 3 wana corona, ama mtu mmoja. Hawezi kosa hakuna mtu mmoja ambaye ana corona. Na katika kaunti yetu governor amejaribu kidogo, na pia wale wakubwa wakina county commissioner wamejaribu kupigana na huu ugonjwa na kuhakikisha ya kwamba hakuna mikutano inafanywa, hakuna kutembea bila kitamvua ama barakoa, hakuna kukaa pamoja, na wanaosha mikono. Kuna pahali ambapo watu wanaosha mikono.
Kwa hivyo unaunga juhudi zao za kupambana na janga hili?
Mimi naunga sana. Kwanza nampongeza sana county commissioner wa Kwale kwa kubambana na COVID-19, na ndio maana Kwale imeteremka chini. Huwezi kulinganisha Kwale na Mombasa.
Unapozungumzia kuhusiana kwamba kuna visa vingi, huenda kuna visa vingi kwenye gatuzi hilo na hata kaunti mbalimbali. Kwa tunafahamu fika kwamba serikali inaendeleza juhudi za kupima Wakenya, ile zoezi la ujumla kupima Wakenya maeneo tofauti. Kwa mtazamo wako pengine serikali unahisi kwamba lazima pengine iweze kuhakikisha kwamba zoezi hili limepelekwa maeneo mengine, manake kwa sasa tumetilia mkazo zaidi maeneo ambayo yameonyesha visa vingi vya maambukizi kama Mombasa, Nairobi na kadhalika. Masuala kama hayo.
Nafikiri ile kitu ambaye Wizara ya Afya ingefanya ni kuhakikisha ya kwamba wana vile vyombo vya kupima watu. Na tukitaka kubambana na huu ugonjwa wa corona, tusidanganyane ya kwamba tukisema ya kwamba kuna watu wengine wajapima na watu wengine wajapima, hata tutakuwa tunamaliza huu ugonjwa wa corona. Kwa shauri hata kumfungia mtu nyumbani na hajapimwa, atatoka saa zingine akutane na jirani yake hapo nje, wataambukishana ugonjwa. Ni vizuri Wizara ya Afya ihakikishe ya kwamba imeleta vyombo vya kupima watu. Na watu, angalia Kenya yetu ina watu ambayo wengine wanasikia vizuri. Jana na juzi umeona watu wakijitokeza wengi sana kwenda kupimwa ugonjwa. Wengine pia walikosa kupimwa kwa shauri hatuna vyombo vya kupima ugonjwa. Hiyo ndio shida peke yake hapa Kenya.
Vifaa lazima viweze kuongezwa.
Vifaa ni lazima viongezwe. Na mimi ningeliona hivi. Katika hizi pesa ambazo Mheshimiwa Rais wetu mpendwa amezitoa kama bilioni 54 ya kupiga jeki uchumi. Kama hizo pesa zingeelekezwa katika kununua hivi vyombo vya kupima wananchi COVID-19, ingekuwa ni sawa na watu wangempongeza sana. Kwa shauri vile tutapimwa haraka, ndio vile uchumi wetu utakuwa, na ndio vile tutatoka tujue ya kwamba Bilali yuko na ugonjwa, aweke kando kidogo, amalize karantini yake, atibiwe vizuri, asimuambukishe bwana Kipnusu. Na itakuwa vizuri sana.
Mapendekezo mazuri, lakini tatizo ambalo limeweza kushuhudiwa na Wizara ya Afya hasa katika zoezi hili la kuwapima watu, tunapojaribu kuimarisha kuwepo kwa vifaa, changamoto ni kwamba wanaojitokeza hawapatiani au hawapati wale ambao wanashughulikia zoezi hili maelezo kuwahusu vema, hata nambari ya simu, masuala kama hayo. Kwa hivyo iwapo wanabainishwa kwamba wako na virusi vya corona, basi inakuwa ni vigumu zaidi kuwatafuta na kuweka kwenye karantini ili wasiweze kuambukiza wengine. Pengine unahisi kwamba Wizara ya Afya itafanya nini ili kuhakikisha kwamba inaimarisha juhudi za kuhakikisha kwamba Wakenya wanapatiana maelezo ambayo ni sahihi kuhusiana na wao wanakotoka, mahala ambapo wanaweza kupatikana iwapo wamethibitishwa kuwa na virusi?
Ni makosa na ni hatia kupeana maelezo ambaye sio sahihi. Kwanza kwa mtu wowote yule. Wewe ukipeana namba ambayo sio sawa kwa Wizara ya Afya, hiyo ni makosa. Na nafikiri Wizara ya Afya ingeweza kuangazia haya masuala hasa sana wale ambayo wanapeana nambari ya simu ambaye haifanyi kazi ama ambaye haipo. Kwa shauri huyo mtu kwanza anatakana afungwe. Huyo ni mtu ambaye anapoteza Kenya. Huyo ni mtu ambaye ni adui, anapoteza muda na ni adui wa Kenya. Mimi nikikupatia namba yangu ya kwamba mimi nimepatikana na corona, basi utanipatia time uniambie kwamba ulikuwa na nani jana, juzi, mtondo ule juzi ambapo imepita mtondogo, ulikuwa na nani? Mimi nitapeana listi ambaye nilikuwa na hao watu. Na itasaidia sio mimi, itasaidia pia Wakenya wenzetu wasiambukishwe na hawa watu ambaye saa zingine nimeambukishwa. Kumbuka ya kwamba COVID-19 huo ugonjwa sio wetu sisi, ni wakuletewa. Na vile ni wakuletewa sisi tumeletewa kutoka nje, mataifa za nje. Unakumbuka ya kwamba ilianza pale kunaitwa Wuhan
Uchina.
Uchina. Sasa kidogo unajua tumeletewa, na tukiletewa si ati wewe Kipnusu unaye. Wewe ukipatikana na huo ugonjwa utasema ya kwamba ulikuwa na nani na nani na nani, alafu kisha mtawekwa karantini na mtatibiwa vizuri, alafu mtatoka msiambukishe watu wengine. Lakini hawa watu ambaye hawapeani maelezo sahihi, hawa watu wanatakana wachukuliwe hatua kali mno. Sio nyepesi, hatua kali.
Haya, zungumzia pengine kuhusiana na wale wahudumu wa afya ambao wako kwenye mstari wa mbele kupambana na janga hili. Kwa mtazamo wako, ni masuala yapi kando na vile unavyodokeza kwamba vifaa vya kupimia wagonjwa lazima viwepo ili kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba wagonjwa wanapima, hali halisi kwenye hospitali zetu hapa nchini, je, inatupatia nafasi nzuri ya kupambana na janga hili au kidogo tulijipata ambapo hatukujipanga mapema?
Kipunusu, kuna hii buti ambaye imetolewa, iko pale, iko pande eneo la coast pande ile. Buti kama uliiona jana ilitolewa. Nafikiri zile pesa ambazo zilikuwa zimenunua hiyo buti, kama zingenunua hii vifaa ambaye wanasema ni ya kupima, ingekuwa vizuri sana. Kwa shauri najua ile buti ambayo imenunuliwa, kuna buti ambayo imenunuliwa, nafikiri umeisikia ama umeiona. Ile buti nafikiri sio pesa kidogo. Na ile buti kama ingekuwa wangebadilisha ile pesa ambazo wamenunua nazo hii buti, ili watupatie nini? Watupatie vipimo sisi wananchi. Kwa shauri hata ule mtu akivaa vile alikuwa anavaa, haina shida. Kwa shauri huyu ni mhudumu wa afya. Mimi sasa ninafikiri katika makaunti mengine yamekosea kidogo. Kwa shauri wakati huu si wakati wa kuonesha ya kwamba wewe utanunua nini. Leo hii nunua vipimo vya mtu yule ambaye unampima na unajua ya kwamba buti haipimi mtu. Ile buti ikikaa pale, wewe ukienda pale itakupima. Si lazima kuwe na mtu ndani.
Bila shaka.
Sasa kati ya hii buti ambayo imenunuliwa na zile nguo ambazo huyu bwana alikuwa anaziweka pale, ni gani rahisi? Si ni kweli, si ni hizi nguo ambazo ni rahisi za tandarua? Si ni rahisi sana? Sasa ningelipenda pia county zetu zisiangalie tu kuboresha, yani kuonesha ya kwamba kuna watu ambao wanaingia kwenye buti alafu wanapima mtu. La, waangalie ile buti ingetoka vipimo vingapi ambavyo vingepima watu zaidi ya 1,000 2,000. Na ingesaidia sana. Nafikiri kuna makaunti mengine yamefeli katika kukabiliana na ugonjwa wa corona.
Na tukiwa kwenye muktadha huo kuhusiana na kuwapa motisha wale wahudumu wa afya ambao wanapambana na janga hili, kaunti mbalimbali kiwemo kaunti ya Machakos ilikuwa imependekeza kwamba wale wahudumu wa afya waweze kupewa marupurupu. Mapendekezo yako ni yapi kuhusiana na swala hili? Na kidogo kulikuwa na ile vuta ni kuvute baina ya baraza la magavana na tume ya kutathmini mishahara SRC kuhusiana na iwapo sheria imefuatwa au imekiukwa kuhusiana na wito wa baadhi ya magavana kuwapa motisha wahudumu wa afya.
Bwana Kipunusu, haitakuwa vibaya kupatia morali wale wahuduma wa afya. Kwa shauri wale ndio wako mbele pale, na mara nyingi saa zingine hao pia tumewasikia wengine wamegonjeka ule ugonjwa, kwa shauri walikuwa wanasaidia wengine. Hao watu wanatakana waangaliwe kwa umakini sana. Na kuna vitu vingine ambavyo havifuatwi, kama kwa mfano mshahara ya hawa watu ni mchache mno. Na wale wanapoongezewa mishahara yao wanakuwa na ile morali ama motisha ya kufanya ile kazi. Kumbuka, wale ndio wako pale mbele. Wale ndio watakuhudumia wewe. Leo hii nani atakuhudumia COVID-19 kama sio hao? Ni hao watahakikisha ya kwamba wametupunguza lile joto, wajaribu kukufanyia kitu ambayo kwa kimombo inaitwa managing your body, mpaka ishuke ile joto, alafu waanze kukupatia. Kama ulikuwa na ugonjwa wengine pia, hao ndio watakusaidia. Na ni bora zaidi Kenya yetu iangalie hawa watu ambaye wanajulikana kama madaktari ama wale wauguzi kwa ujumla. Na wale ndio wako saizi ndio wanatusaidia. Na mimi ningeliomba tena na nirudi niseme ya kwamba Wizara ya Afya, kama itakuwa ni ya kwamba ni president atafungua tarehe 6 mwezi wa 6 atalegeza kamba, basi nao wasilegeze kamba, watoe sheria kali mno.
Naam. Zungumzia kuhusiana na baadhi tu ya wale ambao wamekuwa mstari wa mbele kusaidia familia ambazo zimeathirika na janga hili, na kwa mtazamo wako, kwanza serikali imeweza kuwasaidia watu hawa hasa ambao wamekuwa wakitegemea mapato ya kila siku ambayo ndio inawasaidia kuweza kununua chakula pale nyumbani, masuala kama hayo, pengine hali halisi kuhusiana na wale watu ambao kidogo ile amri ya kutoka nje imewaathiri hapa nchini?
Kweli Kipnusu, kuna wale ambao wanafanya kazi ya tunaita ya jua kali.
Na wale kina mama mboga.
Yote hili ni ya jua kali na kina mama mboga. Yote ni jua kali. Wale watu wanapokosa kwenda kazini, hawapati pesa na hawatakula. Wale watu ndio serikali imeangazia sana. Na ndio unaona mara nyingi sana chakula kinatolewa, kinapatiwa watu kama hawa. Lakini ni kitu cha kushangaa sana, wanapopatiwa kile chakula tunasikia pali pengine ya kwamba kimewekwa sumu. Ni kisa kibaya sana kitu kama hicho. Na kama kuna mtu ambaye anatumia siasa kupatia watu sumu kupitisha kwenye chakula ndio mtu fulani aonekane ni mbaya, mtu fulani aonekane ni mzuri, itakuwa si wakati mwafaka ama wakati wa kisasawa kufanya kitu kama hiyo. Kwa shauri hata wewe mwenyewe kama ni wewe uliyefanya hivyo, basi serikali haitakujua. Bilali hata kujua, lakini Mwenyezi Mungu siku moja atakupiga kiboko.
Kwa hivyo ni jambo la kusekesha wale ambao wanajaribu kuleta siasa kwa kupatiana chakula ambayo kina sumu na kuwanyoshea vidole wengine. Naam, pengine kuhusiana na shule kufunguliwa, manake hilo ni gumzo vile vile ambayo imekuwa ikiteka anga hii leo. Tizama baadhi ya washikadau katika sekta ya elimu wakizungumzia mikakati ya kufunguliwa kwa shule, manake kwa sasa zungumzia masomo kutatizika pakubwa. Tuna kule mtihani wa kitaifa wa darasa la 8, mtihani wa kitaifa wa KCSE vile vile. Kwa mtazamo wako, shule zifunguliwe, na pengine ikiwa zitafunguliwa, mikakati ipi serikali inastahili kuweka ili kudhibiti maambukizi shuleni, hasa kwenye shule ambazo zina wanafunzi wengi zaidi, kuna ile msongamano na masuala kama hayo?
Bwana Kipnusu, katika shule kufunguliwa, sio vibaya shule kufunguliwa, lakini mikakati je imewekwa ya ile shule kufunguliwa? Kwa shauri shule zetu, mimi nimejenga skuli, darasa nikasaidia serikali, si kweli? Kwa shauri hakukuwa na shule za kutosha, madarasa ya kutosha. Madarasa ya kutosha, nimejenga darasa pale kwetu nyumbani, lakini hakukuwa na darasa la kutosha. Watoto wamerundikana na ni wengi mno kwa darasa limoja. Kuna msongamano. Je, itakuwa ni mwafaka ama ni wakati sahihi wa kufungua shule wakati sisi wenyewe tunajua ya kwamba mashule yetu yamejaa mno, yakazidi? Mimi nitasema haitakuwa ni wakati sahihi. Kwa shauri ya nini? Ni kama kumtia mtoto kitanzi ukiwa wewe mwenyewe unaona. Tumesikia Bwana Raila pia ameongea kuhusu shule zisifunguliwe, akawaambia kwamba tafadhali muangalie sana, na akawaonya kwamba msijaribu kufungua kwa shauri italeta shida. Na pia viongozi wengi. Lakini shule ni sawa kama itafunguliwa, kuna hawa ambaye wanafanya kidato cha 4 na kuna hawa wengine wanafanya darasa la 8 na kuna wale ambaye ni waanzilishi wako pale katika kuanzia elimu, wale chekechea, wale wanaweza kukubaliwa. Ndiyo haya madarasa mengine ambayo yamebaki yatumike kwa hawa. Iwe ni ile wanaita social distance, iwe ni ile kawaida, na wawe na barakoa, na kuwe na pahali Wizara ya Elimu iwe imetenga pahali pa kunawa mikono na kila kitu. Sio tu kunawa mikono tupu. Kunawa mikono ukitumia sabuni ya kutoa uchafu, ya kukill germs.
Mataifa mengine yamefanya hivyo. Pendekezo lako hilo kama vile Uchina, Namibia vile vile, na kuhakikisha kwamba wale tu wanafunzi ambao ni watainiwa ndio wanaruhusiwa kwenda shuleni na kutumia madarasa hayo ambayo ni ya pengine wengine kuweza kuendeleza masomo yao. Lakini changamoto ni kwamba kwa kawaida wanafunzi ni wakaidi, ile kupuuza masuala kadha wa kadha. Kwa mtazamo wako, mikakati ipi iwapo masuala haya yataweza kuzingatiwa na Wizara ya Afya na serikali kwa jumla, mikakati ipi ambao watatumia ili kusikue na ile maambukizi shuleni? Batiani.
Kuna mikakati ambayo imetumika, tumeiona. Si tumeona mikakati ambayo madereva wa trailer wanapitia. Hao watoto ambayo wale wanafunzi ambayo watakuwa wa darasa la 8. Na serikali ingeanza mikakati sahihi ya kuwatafuta hao na kuhakikisha ya kwamba wamepimwa, wana ile certificate pia hao.
Kama wanavyofanya wale wa masafa
kama wanavyofanya wale madereva wa masafa marefu. Wawe na certificate wanaporudi shuleni
saa 48 kabla.
Kabla. Na hiyo itahakikisha itasaidia kupunguza. Na wanapochukuliwa, basi ingekuwa ni vizuri sana wachukuliwe na basi za shule
ambazo zimefukizwa,
ambazo vimefukizwa. Na mara nyingi sana iwe na pia ile unajua wale tunapoleta wanafunzi watakuwa na vitamvua, watakuwa wako sawa, watakuwa na hata wakiwa na ile certificate ambaye ni ya kusema ya kwamba hawana virusi, lakini wawe bado wanajikinga tu bado. Itasaidia sana. Na itakuwa ni jambo nzuri sana. Nafikiri hatujitayarisha kurudi shuleni. Kwa shauri kama tungerudi shuleni, kama ingesemekana ya kwamba wanafunzi wanarudi shuleni, wangekuwa wameanza hii mikakati ya kupima wale wanafunzi ambaye wanakalia mtihani mwaka huu, either uwe wa darasa la 8 ama wa kidato cha 4.
Na mnazungumzia mitihani ya kitaifa na serikali kuweka mikakati kwamba wanafunzi wanapokuwa pale nyumbani wanapata masomo kupitia mitandao, kwenye redio, kwenye televisheni na masuala kama haya. Kwa mtazamo wako, masomo hayo yameweza kuwa ya manufaa kwa wanafunzi au kidogo kuna wale ambao wanapitia changamoto kupata masomo haya ambayo yanaendelezwa na Wizara ya Afya ikishirikiana na ile shirika ambalo limekuwa la mtaalamu hapa nchini kuhusiana na masuala haya?
Bwana Kimnusu, nafikiri ule usomaji ama kusoma kwa mtandao, kuna wanafunzi zaidi ni kama asilimia kama 70 ambaye hawana ule mtandao. Hawana ule mtandao. Utakuwa wewe unaweka asilimia 30 peke yake ndio unawafundisha katika ule mtandao. Kuna watoto ambao ni maskini sana, hawawezi kumudu hata kupata simu ambaye sio ile ambayo iko na vitu kama hivyo vya kusoma. Na hata kuna wengine ambayo kwao hawana hata runinga. Sasa ni vigumu sana, na itakuwa ni vigumu na haitawezekana hiyo. Itanufaisha katika dijitali, wanasema masomo ya kidijitali. Itanufaisha wale matajiri peke yake. Lakini wale maskini, kuna baadhi ya watu, Bwana Kipnusu, kupata lishe ama kupata chakula ya kila siku wanabambana sana ndio wapate ile chakula. Na bwana utamwambia mambo ya TV, utamwambia mambo ya kutumia simu ambazo watoto wasome, itakuwa ni vigumu sana. Na hiyo kwangu ninaona ni kama imefeli ile ya dijitali.
Tukiagana na masomo kidogo, hali halisi hapa nchini kuhusiana na wale watu wa kawaida ambao shirika la takwimu hapa nchini KBC ilidokeza kwamba mwezi Aprili wa Kenya thuluthi moja waliweza kukabiliwa na changamoto kulipa kodi za nyumba. Kwa mtazamo wako, pengine kusitiri na kuhakikisha kwamba watu kama hawa wanasaidiwa, manake kutaibuka mzozo, na bila shaka kumekuwa na mizozo kadha wa kadha. Sisi kama wanahabari tumekuwa tukifanya taarifa ambayo watu wameshindwa kulipa kodi, kazi haipo, wamepewa likizo ya lazima bila zile mshahara, masuala kama hayo. Pengine zungumzia hali halisi kuhusiana na swala hili, hasa kwa wale ambao wamekabiliwa na changamoto ya kulipa kodi.
Unajua kodi ni inapiga jeki uchumi wa nchi. Kwa shauri yule landlord ama yule mwenye nyumba anapopata ile pesa, yeye mara nyingine wanaweka ile pesa pale ambayo inaitwa fixed deposit, alafu kuna mtu mwingine anakuja anachukua ile pesa kama mkopo, na inapiga jeki uchumi wa taifa. Kuna baadhi ya watu ambaye hawawezi kumudu kulipa rent ama kulipa nyumba wakati huu mgumu wa COVID. Na ndio tumewaangazia ni wale watu ambaye wanatoka wanaenda jua kali, jioni wanapata, wanakuja wanaweka kidogo, wakiweka kidogo, ikifika mwisho wa mwezi wanalipa ile nyumba na wanapata ya kukula. Imekuwa ni changamoto kwa watu kama hawa kulipa kodi. Lakini pia ni changamoto pia kwa malandlord, ya kwamba malandlord, huyu mtu anaweza kuwa amekulipa, amekaa kwenye nyumba yako miaka kama 10 kwa mfano, ama miaka 5. Mtu amekuwa akikulipa kodi yako vizuri tu sana, lakini wakati huu wa COVID ndio saa zingine amelegeza kidogo. Naomba pia saa zingine malandlord wetu waangalie hapo, ya kwamba huyu mtu alikuwa ananilipa vizuri, hakuwa ule mgaidi. Lakini pia kuna wale ambaye wanasumbua malandlord sana. Wacha hata mimi niongee kwa niaba ya wale malandlord. Wanawasumbua sana. Wamekuwa wakiwasumbua kutolipa kodi. Ama saa zingine hata walipe miezi 6, saa zingine hata wanaonewa huruma, wanaambia basi hii sasa. Lakini ana pesa ule bwana. Ule bwana akitoka pale, ule landlord anamuona ameingia kwenye bar fulani, ama ameingia pale fulani, lakini nyumba yake halipi. Sasa nafikiri pia malandlord wengine wamechukua ile wakati wa kumfurusha huyu mtu. Lakini ni wakati mwafaka serikali pia iwasaidie, kama ni kweli iwasaidie walipe pia nao. Tumesikia kwamba kuna watu ambao wamesaidia watu kulipa rent.
Na pia wamiliki wa nyumba baadhi tu wao wameweza kusema kwamba msilipe baadhi fulani. Tumeona watu baadhi unatoa wito vile vile kwa wengine kufuata mkondo huo, hasa kwa wale ambao ni waaminifu. Maana umedokeza kwamba kuna wale ambao wanajaribu tu kutumia kisingizio cha COVID-19.
Waaminifu bwana Kipunusu ni wale, hata kama wewe utakuwa ni landlord au utawafungia, kwa shauri wale wamekuwa wakikulipa. Lakini hawa ambaye unaona ya kwamba wanatolewa kwenye manyumba ni wale wakaidi ambao walipi rent.
Bila shaka. Na salia na dakika 8 hivi, wewe kama mtaalamu wa masuala ya uongozi na masuala ya siasa na vile vile uchumi, itakuwa vema zaidi vile vile kuzungumzia hali halisi kuhusiana na siasa hapa nchini. Tumeona kumekuwa na ile chama cha Jubilee kuwahadhibu baadhi ya viongozi ambao wanakisiwa kwamba hawafuati matakwa ya chama na masuala kama hayo. Pengine zungumzia kwa kidogo hali halisi, na pengine pendekezo lako litakuwa lipi kwa viongozi, hasa kuhakikisha kwamba joto la siasa linarudi chini, hasa wakati huu ambapo taifa linapambana na janga la COVID-19?
Tukizungumzia masuala ya siasa, bwana Kipunusu, kuna ile agreement ama kuna ile mkataba ambaye mtu wowote, mwanasiasa wowote katika chama chochote anaweka kidole, ana sign ya kwamba amekubaliana na nini? Amekubaliana na ule mwito wa chama kile. Unapokosea, imesema pale, kuna shoka pale, kuna adhabu pale katika ile agreement ambaye ni mkataba wa chama na wewe ambaye unapatiwa ile nomination certificate uwanie kwa niaba ya hiyo chama. Unapokeuka, kuna maagizo ya kusema ya kwamba unaweza kutolewa unapogeuka. Na tumeona mambo mengi bwana Kipunusu katika siasa zetu. tumeona ya kwamba kuna sakata ya mashamba, tumeona kuna sakata ya bwawa, pesa zimeliwa mashamba, tumeona ya kwamba kuna mahindi pia. Imekuwa ni sakata kubwa sana. Kidogo bwana president anajaribu kufagia, anajaribu kufagia ile nyumba ya vile umesema Jubilee iwe safi. Alafu kuna kitu kingine nataka nikwambie. Wewe unapoingia pale, wewe ni umepatiwa ile jukumu la kuongoza kama kinara. Kuna kinara, kuna kiranja ambaye ndio whip, kuna kinara, na umepatiwa ile jukumu, ukapatiwa ma bodyguard na nini na nini. Usisahau ya kwamba wewe hautoshani na rais. Rais ndio mwenye inchi, na kati ya ile rais akiwa mwenye ile inchi, yeye ndio pia mwenye kiongozi wa ile chama. Unapogeuka, angalia mara nyingi
na pengine kwa mtazamo wako unaona kwamba baadhi ambao wanapitia masaibu ni msiba wa kujitakia ambao hauna kilio. Pengine zungumzie swala hili.
Wale wamezuia serikali kufanya kazi zao sawasawa. Na wamezuia kazi ifanyike sawasawa. Kumbuka hao ndio wanatakana walete mjadala bungeni, na hao wanatakana waongoze na kumalisha hii agenda 4. Wameizuia, na ndio maana sasa imefika ni wakati wa kusafisha ile nyumba ya Jubilee, ndio ifanye kazi, na tukishirikiana na chama cha mashinani, chama cha KANU, chama cha ODM, wote wanakuja pamoja ili kufanikisha agenda 4 ya President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
Naam. Na kuhusiana na swala hili pengine tukitamatisha, baadhi tu ya watu ambao wameweza kujipata kwenye shoka hili au shoka hili limeweza kuangukia, tumeona kwamba vile vile wametunikiwa nafasi mbalimbali na katibu mkuu wa chama hicho Raphael Tuju, na hapo jana kwa mfano kama Samson Cherargei amesema kwamba hawezi kukubali wadhifa huo. Vile vile yeye kama alipokuwa kama mwenyekiti wa ile kamati ya sheria kwenye bunge la Seneti, masuala kama pengine ile wao kutoitikia wito wa kupewa nafasi nyingine na chama hicho inaashiria nini?
Mtu akikataa kupatiwa, ikisemekana ya kwamba ametolewa kwa hii nafasi, anapatiwa ingine, anakataa kuchukua hiyo ingine, ni kuonesha kwamba huyu mtu ni mkaidi. Huyu mtu sio sawa. Na kuna ile balance. President ni mtu, ni kiongozi wa taifa la Kenya. Makamu wake pia ndiye anamfuata. Alafu kuna baadhi ya watu. Sasa kuna baadhi ya watu walikuwa wanataka kujilinganisha na president, na ndio unaona kuna shida. Huyu president saa zingine amenyamaza, amewapatia mfanye kazi, lakini nyinyi hamfanyi kazi. Na wengine wanapokataa ya kwamba kusema ya kwamba hatutaki, atukwashauri umetutoa katika hii, hatutaki hii, ni kumaanisha ya kwamba huyu mtu hata tabia zake alikuwa ni mkaidi sana wakati alipokuwa anapatiwa hii nyingine.
Naelezewa muda umetamatika. Pengine neno lako la mwisho litakuwa lipi kwa baadhi ya viongozi ambao wanaendelea siasa na masuala kama hayo, na pengine mustakabali wa siasa hasa kwenye chama cha Jubilee? Mapendekezo yako yatakuwa yapi kwa kiongozi wa taifa na vile vile katibu wa chama cha Jubilee na viongozi wengine kuhusiana na hali halisi na vita dhidi ya janga hili la COVID-19? Ukitizama kamera nambari ya pili.
Vita dhidi ya corona vimesaidia sana. Kwa shauri mwanzo vimeteremsha hali ya joto ikaja kwa 17%. Ya pili ni kwamba Mheshimiwa Rais amefanya mambo mazuri sana. Kwa shauri ameleta ile 54 billion. Hii 54 billion kama ningemuomba ya kwamba isiende tu kupiga jeki uchumi, bali ije inunue vifaa vya kupima watu COVID-19 ili ijulikane ni watu ngapi ambaye wana huu ugonjwa na ni watu ngapi ambaye tutawatenga na tuwasaidie. Na katika pia mambo ya shule pia ni safi, shule zifunguliwe, lakini kuwe na mikakati mwafaka wa kufungua shule. Wasiwe ni wote ambao wanarudi, wale tu ambaye wanafanya mitihani ndio warudi, na warudi na ile certificate ya COVID itakuwa ni vizuri sana na tutakuwa tumepunguza na tumesaidia nchi. Kumbuka huu ugonjwa ni hatari na unaua.
Bila shaka.
Bila shaka.
Asante sana mtazamaji. Huyo ni Charles Bilali ambaye ni mchanganuzi wa masuala ya siasa, kiuchumi na uongozi, akitoa kauli yake kuhusiana na hali halisi hapa nchini, vita dhidi ya gonjwa hatari la corona. Natumai mahojiano haya yamekuwa ya manufaa kwako wewe, hasa tunapolenga kuweza kuweka nguvu zetu pamoja kupambana na adui mkubwa au mnyama hatari ambaye ni janga la COVID-19. Kufikia hapo sina la ziada ila kutamatisha tamrini ya Channel 1 kwa niaba ya kikosi kizima ambacho kimefanikisha, kiwemo mwelekezi mkuu Mugo Karioki, msimamizi wa kipindi Agri Mteve, na wapiga picha na wale wote, nasema asante sana kwa kutizama. Asante sana vile vile kuweza kutenga muda wako Bilali kuzungumza nasi. Hadi hapo kesho panapo majaliwa yake Mwenyezi Mungu. Naitwa Timothy Kipnusu, mfasiri wa lugha ya ishara. Amekuwa Susan Thuku. Nakutakia usani.
Greetings again in Jesus' name. My name is Bishop Jonah Obonyo of Cathedral of Praise, Imara Daima. I bring you a message of hope one more time this morning from the very scripture we read the other time, Psalm 23 and verse number 2 and 3. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And then I will read John chapter 14 and verse number 1. Let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. Jesus Christ is speaking about a very central part of a human being, and that is the heart of a man, the soul of a man, the very place where issues of life come from, the very place where emotions and everything is controlled from. And he says the heart of man is where joy emanates from. And he says here, he restores my soul. And Jesus says, let not your heart be troubled. In such a moment like now, in times like this, when things are not together, and the COVID-19 has invaded our space and has caused so many hearts to be troubled, I want to tell you something today, that even as your heart is troubled, believe in God, because he is the restorer of your soul. Because when your heart is troubled, you cannot eat well. You cannot sleep well. You cannot put your mind together to bring judgment that is balanced. You cannot make decisions that are balanced because your heart is troubled. You cannot go forth and move forward towards your destiny because your heart is troubled. I come to you today to let you know all you need is to have peace in God, because all these things will come to pass. All the problems we are facing will all come to an end one day. One day we'll be telling the story and telling our children and our children's children that we were there and we saw it and we experienced it and it came and passed. Let not your hearts be troubled. No amount of sleep will escape your life. You will enjoy every bit of the day that the Lord has given you. And I speak to the whole nation, I speak to every individual that is listening to me today, that all the reports you hear and everything that is going on around, the Lord will give us a way out. 3 things for you to do. Believe in the Lord your God, and he will bring to pass every promise. Believe in the shepherd of your soul. Call on him and he will answer you. Trust in him and he will show you his faithfulness. And that is the word of God for us today. He restores my soul. May he restore your soul and your heart be at peace. In Jesus' mighty name. Heavenly Father, we thank you. Just as the world today is more confused than ever because of the problems that we are facing because of the COVID-19, Lord, many hearts are troubled. Many are peaceless. Many have no sense of direction. I pray that even as you have spoken in your word, that you will restore our souls. May you restore the souls of your people. May you give them joy and happiness in this moment, that even as they push their lives through this very issue that is before us and with us, that Lord, you'll give them victory and give them peace. In Jesus' name, I do pray. Amen.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Asakaya, I repeat the one with the flowers. Let real men make money. You shall get your time. Madam Kamene, please keep your sweetheart company there.
So, you think putting a flower on top of his desk is going to sort your issues, eh?
Yes, of course. Why not? I saw it in a movie that when you want to apologize to your loved one, you buy them a flower, and it is very cute and romantic.
Young man, confirm your opinion and your comments to yourself.
I refuse to let myself accept that we will lose today.
Stop nagging me. But if you continue like this, I'm going to swap sweets. Okay? I'll get somebody else to sit here.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Virusi vya korona vinazidi kuenea haraka kote ulimwenguni, na kwa sasa hakuna dawa au chanjo ya kuzuia. Husambaa wakati vijitone kutoka kwa mtu aliyeambukizwa vinaporuka akiongea, kukohoa au kupiga chafya. Vijitone hivi hutua kwenye sehemu ambazo mikono hushika na huwezi kuviona, lakini hata kama huvioni haimaanishi kuwa hakuna, na unaweza kuambukizwa unapogusa uso wako, pua, mdomo au macho. Ili kusaidia kuzuia kuenea kwa virusi hivi, sote tunahitajika kufanya mambo matano. 1. Fuata hatua hizi: kuosha mikono yako mara kwa mara na sabuni na maji kwa angalau sekunde 40. 2. Funika mdomo wako na kiwiko wakati wote unapokohoa au kupiga chafya. 3. Usishike uso wako. 4. Epuka sehemu zenye watu wengi. Weka umbali salama baina yako na wenzako. 5. Kaa nyumbani ukiweza, hasa ikiwa una dalili zozote za ugonjwa. Kwa maelezo zaidi tembelea www.who.int.
Yeyote aliye na kinga hafifu mwilini yuko katika hatari ya kuambukizwa COVID-19. Hao ni kama watu ambao wanaishi na magonjwa kama vile virusi vya HIV, kansa, TB, kisukari, miongoni mwa magonjwa mengine. Lazima wazingatie matibabu ili kuboresha kinga mwilini. Lazima wahakikishe wamepata dawa ipasavyo. Tembelea kliniki yako au kituo cha afya kilicho karibu nawe kwa maelezo kamili kuhusu jinsi ya kupata dawa. Pia wasaidie jamaa na rafiki kupata dawa. Dumisha mawasiliano nao na ufuate mwongozo wa kiafya kutoka kwa kituo cha afya ili kujikinga na virusi vya korona. Pata habari kuhusu COVID-19 kupitia vyanzo vinavyoaminika. Piga 719 au bonyeza *719#. COVID-19 inazuilika. Jilinde, linda familia na jamii. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na serikali ya Kenya.
A very good afternoon to you. We sure hope you're having yourself a lovely day so far. Welcome to KBC Channel 1 Lunchtime News. My name is Betty Kiptum. Lensa Odingo is my sign language interpreter, my colleague on the sign language interpretation. Let's start with an update on matters the flood situation in the country. And the government says 29 more people have died from floods and landslides, raising the death toll to 285 in the country. Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa at the same time says at least 810,000 people have been affected by the heavy rains. According to Wamalwa, the government will embark on rehabilitation of destroyed infrastructure before the onset of the October rain season. Environment Cabinet Secretary Keriako Tobiko, on his part, says that the government has set aside 3 billion shillings to mitigate the effects of floods in the country.
As of midnight last night, the total number of lives lost have risen from 256 to 285. And also the number of people affected has risen to 810,655. This is just a part of the effects of these heavy rains that have been ongoing, but we also have acreage in terms of crop loss in many parts of the country.
The President has announced that the sector, broadly, in appreciating the importance of environment and nature, will get about 3 billion Kenya shilling out of the stimulus package. That should be one to mitigate on the impact of deforestation, climate change, and provision of water to the ASAL areas, flood control.
Currently, the soil moisture is quite high. The river levels are quite high. And so we are likely to experience occasional mudslides and flooding. If you recall, yesterday there was a case of flooding in Lamu. Later today, we'll release the forecast for June, July, August.
Now, Tana River Governor Dado Godana is blaming the national government for the slow response in mitigating the effects of floods. Godana claims it took the government too long to step in and help the floods victims of the Tana Delta, with aid coming when it was too late and yet too little.
Tana River County currently has over 48,000 residents, of who have been displaced by floods. Speaking during a tour of some of the affected villages in Tana North and Tana Delta in Kipini area, Governor Dado Godana said the response to floods by the national government has been wanting.
We really appeal to national government to now come down from the 24 floors, come down from the high towers that they're living in. They come down to Tana. We sit together. We find solution to these disasters.
Godana said flood victims require a long-term solution, which is in line with the cluster program he initiated that falls within the urbanization agenda of the national government.
It is taking them ages to get 4 billion for the deployment of basic infrastructure towards the implementation of the village cluster program.
He said the idea is to bring together like 4 villages to become a small town to move away from the rural setup. The governor said there are fears of an outbreak of cholera as the hygiene in the villages is wanting.
The outbreak of cholera and other related diseases, apart from the COVID-19 we are talking about, is very inevitable. Very inevitable.
Suleiman Yeri, Channel 1 News.
Moving to health matters now. Health experts in Kenya are warning of a possible rise in stillbirths amid reports the number of women attending antenatal clinics has reduced significantly for fear of contracting COVID-19 disease. Speaking in Kajiado County, the experts regretted that most expectant women in the area have turned to traditional midwifery services, posing great danger to themselves and their unborn babies. Purity Museo reports.
As Kenya and the rest of the world reels from the devastating effects of the COVID-19 outbreak, pregnant women afraid to contract the infectious disease in hospitals have opted to deliver their babies at home, with experts warning it is a dangerous trend.
Tumeshuhudia kwamba kina mama wengi hawajaweza kufika hospitali, hasa kupata huduma za kina mama. Ni kwa sababu wakati hili janga limepata dunia mzima na Kenya na katika jamii letu, kumekuwa na kuhakikisha kwamba kila mtu anakaa nyumbani. Kwa hivyo kina mama kufika pale hospitali hawajaweza kufika.
The antenatal profile, we used to serve like 10 to 15 mothers per month, but right now we are having like a low number of less than 5 per month.
Statistics from community health centers show most women in Kajiado County are not seeking antenatal services, and this could derail successes made in reducing maternal and child mortality.
Ni hatari sana kwa sababu hawapati ile information ama tuseme wasia kutoka kwa madaktari. Ya pili, kupimwa katika hali yao ya afya hawajaweza kutimiza. Wengine kama zile kliniki zao wamekuwa wakihudhuria zimekatishwa na hii kipindi ya corona.
Nalala Community Clinic is a classic example of how the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way of life. The facility is empty. It has not had patients since mid-March when Kenya confirmed her first coronavirus case. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News.
Now, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced that places of worship will be reopened on 1st June with strict guidelines to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Churches, mosques, temples, and other recognized places of worship will be required to ensure worshippers keep a distance. The country has so far recorded 24,264 cases of coronavirus.
Only 50 or less people will be allowed to attend worship, depending on the size of the worship place in South Africa, as President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the reopening of places of worship beginning June 1st. All worshippers will also be required to wear masks and sanitize. President Ramaphosa announced this as he acknowledged the roles religious leaders play in the community, including counseling and prayers.
The call by religious leaders for a day of prayer as the country unites against the coronavirus pandemic. And secondly, the decisions of the National Coronavirus Command Council on proposals made by religious leaders on the gradual resumption of certain religious activities.
South Africa has so far recorded 24,264 cases of coronavirus. Elsewhere, Nigeria will continue with the planned clinical trials on malaria drug hydroxychloroquine on COVID-19 patients, even after the World Health Organization halted a similar effort due to safety fears.
For example, chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine happens to have worked, then we know that we can use chloroquine. But
meanwhile, the brother of Senegal's president has announced that he has tested positive for coronavirus. Alioso, who is also a mayor, said he was being treated at Dalal Diam Hospital in the capital, Dakar. His wife also tested positive for the virus and was being treated at the same hospital. The COVID-19 pandemic has reached a milestone in Africa with more than 100,000 cases confirmed. The virus has now spread to every country in the continent since the first case was confirmed in the region 14 weeks ago. While Latin America has become the center of the global pandemic, the head of the Pan American Health Organization warns the region now has more daily reported cases of COVID-19 than Europe and the US. The numbers in Venezuela are almost certainly much higher than reported. The US is nearing 100,000 lives lost as a result of the pandemic. Nearly 5.6 million cases and more than 350,000 deaths have been confirmed around the world, according to Johns Hopkins University. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News.
Back in Kenya, police in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County have warned those flouting government guidelines put in place to prevent the spread of the novel coronavirus, that the full force of the law will be meted on them. Uasin Gishu Deputy Police Commander Zacchaeus Ngeno noted that a section of residents of Uasin Gishu County are not observing social distancing and wearing of face masks. Ngeno said those found breaking the rules will be arrested and taken to isolation centers, as it has been the norm. Uasin Gishu County has 5 confirmed cases of coronavirus.
Tushapata watu kadhaa wenye watii amri yenye simepeanwa kama kufaa barakoa, wengine wafai, wengine wanatangamana pasipo na ile kitu inaitwa social distancing, ama kutokuwa na maanani sana mahali wameketi, na wengine wengi tushapeleka kotini, na wengine tushapeleka katika quarantine center. Hata county government of Uasin Gishu walipopeana hizo amri, hakuna mtu ashalegeza, na tulegesi kwa sababu janga la corona bado ni tisho kwa binadamu ama kwa wananchi wote, bila kujali umri ama kazi yenye mtu anafanya.
Now, thousands of people in various parts of the country are facing a humanitarian crisis following the flood situation that has left a trail of destruction across the country. The flooding, which has been attributed to surging water levels in lakes and rivers following the heavy rains, has led to the displacement of people and scores dead, even as the weatherman warned of continued downpour until June. Affected residents who are living under deplorable conditions are now in dire need of food and non-food items.
We met Grace Lekupe, a resident of Ngambo location, Baringo South, preparing some meal for her family. This is what she has managed to get from her unpromising charcoal business that she is now relying on after her farm was flooded. She's among the more than 600 people who were recently displaced by flood waters here.
Watoto nilihamisha, nikachukua marigat. Nikaacha watoto wawili tu ya kukaa na mimi hapa hivi. Juu mimi ni mama mwenye sina bwana. Bwana yangu aliaga 2014. Sasa ni mimi peke yangu na watoto wangu. Mimi ni mama wa watoto 9.
And as the rains subside, Lekupe has decided to move back to her house that a few days ago was a pool of water.
Lake Baringo inakuja, Rifa Ferekera inakuja, imetusumbua sisi wote. Saizi sijui mahali watu wengine wanaishi. Kwa hivyo mimi natetea Ngambo location na sisi wote wa serikali yetu mtusaidie.
She's still coming to terms with the damage the raging waters caused her, but as they are grateful for today's meal, the next day is uncertain.
Maisha ni ngumu sana. Juzi tumepata mchele, tukachukua nusu kilo kila mtu. Nusu kilo ni kukula saa hiyo, sio siku. Ni saa hiyo tu naweka sufuria inaishia hapo. Na haitoshi watoto.
Her neighbor Edward Tamar says residents in the location are in dire situation, pleading for both food and non-food items.
Hapa imekuwa too much because of this flooding. Kila mahali ni wet. Wild animals, aquatic animals like crocodiles, like snakes that live in the water, like hippos. Hippos wanakuja mpaka wanachanganyana na watu hapa. Sasa hii hatuna ng'ombe kwa hii area.
Areas such as Ngambo, Sintan, Kiserian, Kokwa in Baringo South have been affected by floods following surging waters in Lake Baringo and nearby rivers. The situation is replicated in lakes Naivasha, Elementaita and Nakuru, which experts attribute the flooding to swelling volumes in the water bodies. Kamche Menza for Channel 1 News.
That story by Kamche Menza brings us to our first break here on Channel 1 Lunchtime News. But don't go too far. We will be back with more news, including local, business and sports news. Stay with us.
Je, ungependa kujua jinsi ninavyojizuia
kuambukizwa au kuambukizana virusi vya korona? Ni rahisi. Mwanzo, ninaziendesha shughuli zangu zote za kikazi na hata za kibiashara kutoka papa hapa nyumbani kwangu. Baadaye, ninaitunza mwili wangu vyema kwa kuiweka katika hali iliyo sawa kupitia mazoezi ya mara kwa mara na pia lishe bora. Mwishowe, ninaungana na jamii yangu pamoja na marafiki zangu kupitia njia ya simu au mtandao ili kuzuia dhiki na upweke wakati huu mgumu. Kumbuka, haijalishi kama uko na virusi vya korona au la, salia nyumbani. Uokoe maisha.
This message has been brought to you by the government of Kenya and its partners.
On the next episode of Corner.
Have you resolved your thing with Wanjala? The two of you must sort this out.
You know Wanjala.
I'm talking to you right now.
Today's the day. Unajisikiaje?
I don't know. Nervous?
But wewe usema unapenda ukiwa nervous.
On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
You know what, Elena? Having you like this, so close to me, but still so far away from me, actually causes me a lot of pain.
And what do you know about pain? You don't even have any feelings.
That's what I thought.
Andrea, you were just like Michael. You were both suffering for an impossible love.
You just said it. It was an impossible love. I never had anything with him.
You're gonna pay for
Welcome back. You are watching Channel 1 Lunchtime News. Now, a multi-agency report on effects of coronavirus pandemic on education recommends that schools remain closed until a time when the COVID-19 new cases stabilizes or takes a downward trend. Kenya National Union of Teachers, Universities, Academic and Staff Union WASU and Kenya Human Rights Commission proposes that schools should not reopen until September 2020 and that the national examinations should be pushed to the first quarter of 2021. In the report, the multi-agency team warns that the countries which have reopened their learning institutions, despite observing the laid down guidelines, have continued to witness a rise in new infections of the deadly virus.
What is wrong if you take exams in March? Will the world come to an end? No. The university admission time will change. All other programs will change. And by the way, we are dealing with a connected chain from preschool to the universities. All of them are now at home. And when they resume, they will all resume almost at once and progress from where they left. So there are no losses. We have seen cases where even universities can be closed for 1 year. Some of us were affected. We were at home for 1 year. That did not stop us from graduating. We graduated. And now we are working. We are about to retire. But in the wake of this virus, there is nothing fundamentally wrong with rescheduling the calendar. So no, the calendar will not remain the same. The exams is impossible to be taken in the month of October when children have been at home and when they cannot be in school. The virus is still growing.
Now, the Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata says anticipated reopening of the economy and the removal of a number of restrictions will be done in accordance with the public health guidelines. The Regional Commissioner said the national government is set to speed up the construction of a pedestrian bridge across the Likoni Channel that connects Mombasa Island to the mainland south as part of the new normal situation occasioned by the COVID-19 scourge.
Mombasa County is among the counties that are under partial lockdown and cessation of movement. And after the president's speech that hinted easing of some of the restrictions and the reopening of the economy, preparations to embrace the new normal are underway. According to the Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata, the national government will immediately commence the building of the Likoni pedestrian bridge across the Likoni crossing channel, which is expected to be completed under 6 months.
Tunajua kwamba katika feri hatutatoka. Ile discipline ambayo ilirudi pale itabaki pale pale, lakini pia tutajenga daraja ambayo itakamilika kwa miezi 6 ijayo, inaitwa Likoni Pedestrian Bridge, ile ambayo itakuwa inafunguka meli ikipita na inafungwa wakati ambapo meli inaondoka. Na tunatarajia kwamba meli hiyo daraja itaweza kupunguza ule msongamano ulioko katika feri na pia kuhakikisha kwamba ile social distancing ambayo itatusaidia kupunguza makali ya ugonjwa huu hasa maambukizi yatapungua.
Elungata noted that the public health restrictions will be upheld even as the country prepares to rebuild its economy.
Uzito wa kuhakikisha kwamba maambukizi yanapungua utakuwa kwa yule mtu binafsi. Itakuwa ni juu yako kuhakikisha kwamba uko responsible kwa wale ambao unafanya kazi nao na pia kwa wale ambao unaishi nao. Kwa hivyo haitakuwa tena ni mambo ya serikali kukufuata na kukuuliza imekuaje, mbona hujavaa barakoa, ni juu yako.
He reiterated that the public service vehicles will resume, but still under the same regulations of social distancing and wearing of masks in public.
Kwa hivyo tutarajie kuona kwamba kuna matatu imejaza watu kupindukia, ati basi imejaza watu kupindukia, ati watu wameshuka kuvuka roadblock ya polisi ili waende waingie tena katika hiyo basi iliyojaa. Hatutarajii kuona mambo kama hayo. Tutarajia kuona a very new normal kulingana na vile tumefundishwa tangu tupatwe na gonjwa hili.
This as the tourism sector stakeholders urged to prepare their facilities to the required standards.
Basi hii pia ningetaka kuwaomba sasa wenye mahoteli, kwa sababu wamekuwa na muda wa kuzirekebisha, waanze kuziandaa kupokea wageni wakati ambapo kulegezwa kwa haya makataa yatafikiwa. Tunaona kwamba kama vile rais alivyosema, hatuwezi kukaa katika kujifungia hii lockdown kwa siku zote.
Elungata warned that the public health regulations will not be neglected even after the restrictions are lifted.
Watu lazima wafanye kazi, unajua kazi lazima tutafanya, lakini jinsi ya kufanya kazi hiyo itakuwa tofauti, kwa sababu unajua sasa mambo ya kurundikana katika sehemu moja kufanya kazi, hiyo ni kitu ambacho tutajizuia nacho. Pia tutavaa barakoa kila wakati ambapo tutakuwa katika sehemu za umma. Pia tutahakikisha kwamba ukienda katika sehemu ya burudani kuna ile social distancing ambayo utatimiza.
For Channel 1 Lunchtime News from Mombasa County, I am Anburu.
And Wajir County Commissioner Jacob Narengo is challenging locals to be peace ambassadors and help government develop the region. Narengo said constant attacks on key government installations by Al-Shabaab militia was threatening to derail any meaningful development in the area, and the locals must play a leading role to guard such investments by providing information of imminent attacks to the government if they want to attract even more.
Narengo said unless the locals work with the government by providing critical information on threats to peace, no development would be realized in the region.
Our security is conducive for any socio-economic activity to thrive. And then, on the side of wananchi, it's also incumbent upon wananchi to make sure that we coexist peacefully. So, kama hatutakaa na amani baina jamii zote, hii program haitafaulu.
King, at a meeting attended by the various heads of government departments in the area, including county officers and local investors, Narengo said the coronavirus pandemic has largely disrupted the economic activity in the region, and the government has already put in place various intervention mechanisms to absorb the pandemic shocks.
This economic stimulus to thrive and be of benefit to the people of Wajir. One, we must look at the security component. Anasema kwa Waswahili usema mahali kuna amani maendeleo inapatikana.
He said going forward the government was keen to end duplication of projects as both the national and the county administration are working for the common good of the local residents, and called on young people in the area to take advantage of the stimulus package put in place by the government and enlist for the manual jobs to benefit from the fund. For Channel 1 News, I'm Ben Troinjue.
And residents of Huruma Estate, Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County, are calling on the government to stem the rampant grabbing of public land in the area. The irate locals staged a demonstration against alleged grabbing of a public land by a private developer, demolishing structures put up by the said developer. Their calls coming even as a section of physically disabled persons in Loima constituency in Turkana County called for the sacking of a police officer accused of abetting land crimes in the area.
Residents of Huruma Estate, Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County, say this parcel of land was originally meant for the construction of a market. They allege that the land has since been grabbed.
Kuna mtu amekimbia akijua kuna pesa imetengwa ya kuja kujenga hapa. Tunataka kumwambia yule ambaye anajenga hapa, sababu wafanyikazi tu ndio wako, yeye aonyeshani uso.
Tuko na vijana hapa hawana kazi. Tulikuwa tunangojea county kuja ijenge lockups, vijana wetu waweze kupata kazi, hata sisi tuache kuangamizwa na vijana kwa sababu ya kukosa kazi. Saa hizi ni wakati ya corona. Watoto wetu hawana kazi. Wamechukua advantage kwa sababu iko corona. Hakuna county, watu hakuna kwa maofisi. Ndio wakuja wajenge.
They called on the government to rein in on land grabbers in the area, failure to which they will take matters into their own hands.
Wakazi washauri tuwe kimoja na tufaitie hii soko yetu, soko isiende kwa sababu hii soko ni sisi tutakayofaidika nayo.
In Turkana County, a section of persons living with disability is calling for the sacking of a police officer they accused of being behind illegal land acquisition in the region.
Anakuja kunyemelea sasa kunyang'anya zizi disabled, ana shida mjanga na yeye ni mtu wa serikali, na yeye hawa sijakuta baba wao kama anaishi hapa.
Ni nani mwingine ambaye amekuja nyuma hii mafamilia tena amekuja kutuletea maneno kama hizi? Kwa sababu familia yana shida ambayo iko hapa sasa, hai watoto ambayo wakuyeta ambayo yako mahali hapa. Tumekaa nao tangu.
The group held demos days after Turkana County Senator Malaka Yakad accused the said intelligence officer of plotting to kill him. In Kilifi County, a businessman is appealing on the deputy president to intervene in a tender payment row with a hotel in the region.
Wale wahusika wake haswa yule ambaye niliambiwa anahusika na malipo ambaye anaitwa Faridi, nimekuwa nikiwasiliana naye kwa simu, lakini baada ya kujua kwamba mimi nafuata kulipwa ile deni, hachukui simu zangu na hajibu message zangu, na deni yangu inajulikana manake nilikuwa nikipeleka statement huko.
James Mushemi Munene says he is yet to be paid 2 years after delivering the said construction materials.
Now, the weekly briefing on matters COVID-19 preparedness of the counties happens every week, and it's happening this week in Kisumu. The Council of Governors Chair Wycliffe Oparanya is currently speaking. Let's listen in on that.
How do you intend to bridge the budget? And how do you also intend to work with the national government to cushion the wananchi against the possible effect of inflation which is likely to come as a result of the COVID-19 effect? Two, on the issue about testing, I think last week, Professor Nange will pronounce himself on this matter, saying that the counties lack the capacity to do mass testing because the government has not provided them. And you have also mentioned that there is limitation to this effect. So are you trying to push them to embark on mass testing? And how will he prepare to deal with the cases that will come as a result? Do we have enough facilities to contain or to house those who will be affected? And then lastly, you are also the chairman of the Lake Region Economic Law. And since you were rated the responsibility as the Council of Governors Chair, there's been a lot of quiet activities at the Lake Region Economic Law. I don't know what plans are actually in the offing to make sure that the blocks planned activities actually take root, especially when the planned regional bank, which is actually supposed to be taken off, including other activities which were planned for this region, or whether COVID-19 has actually managed to even scuttle your unity as the Lake Region Economic Bloc, and so you are really working on starting projects. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Kefa, for those very important questions. The first question about deficit at the county level. Actually, in counties, we are not supposed to have deficit financing. So our budget always balances. The only thing we do is to postpone that particular budget item if we do environment. So if I was supposed to do a road, I postponed it to the next financial year. And I'm able to look for money elsewhere to make sure that that particular road is undertaken the following financial year. So there is no deficit financing. The only thing we do is to postpone that particular budget item to the next following financial year. On the issue of testing, I've clearly said that counties do not have capacity to do mass testing. And in any case, it is very, very expensive to undertake mass testing. The best testing will be targeted, and that's what we are doing. Targeted testing where people are traced or in the neighborhood, people are tested. But so long as that is done widespread, it is likely to bring just results near the mass testing. However, we are told we have to live with this particular virus for some time. Maybe as we build capacities at the county level, then more people will be tested. But at the moment, I can tell you counties have no capacity to undertake this particular exercise without the support of the national government. Remember, any testing equipment and procedures have also to be accredited to WHO. So those are some of the issues that have to be followed before actually you move forward and say you have tested people and the results then are credible and respected.
Well, that is the Council of Governors Chair Wycliffe Oparanya. They are just giving the weekly briefing from the governors on the county's COVID-19 preparedness, and he has categorically put it that counties lack the ability or the capacity to conduct mass testing. He insists that targeted testing will continue, and these will give results that are close to what mass testing would give the counties as well as the country. Well, that story, our reporter Simon Achola will be bringing us a detailed report in our subsequent bulletins. We now move on to other news. Government officers aiding smuggling and trafficking of drugs through Moyale border have been put on notice. Eastern Regional Coordinator Isaiah Nakoru warned that no one will be spared as the government steps up efforts to stop the trade that he says is linked to terrorism.
Eastern Regional Coordinator Isaiah Nakoru revealed that within a period of less than a year, the government has confiscated 3,181 kilograms of bang, among other drugs with a street value of close to 50 million shillings.
Tumeconfiscate hata magari ambayo yanatumika. Wanatumia siku hizi magari kubwa kubwa Brados. Wanatumia magari kubwa kubwa ambayo huwezi kufikiria inaweza kutumika kupeleka dawa ama kujihusisha na uhalifu.
The regional coordinator further said among the people arrested were government officers who were abating the illegal trade. He noted that the local administration was working well with Ethiopian authorities to ensure the network is dismantled.
Kuna ushano. There is a direct correlation between the drugs and terrorism.
Nakuru, in the meantime, said security personnel and health workers in the region are on high alert in a bid to secure all the 47 entry points to ensure those entering the region are coronavirus-free.
Now, Matayo's Member of Parliament, Geoffrey Odanga, has added his voice to calls for the reopening of the economy, but under stringent measures. Odanga says the revival of the economy can be achieved through sensitization of citizens and on the need to observe set health guidelines to prevent the spread of coronavirus. The legislator, who made the remarks in his constituency while distributing face masks and hand sanitizers to residents in Buamani, also called for tightening of porous borders to prevent imported COVID-19 cases.
Serikali ifungue uchumi, ifungue taifa, hata shule zifunguliwe. Na mimi ningependekeza kwamba pengine zifunguliwe kwa viwango pole pole. Kwanza tuhakikishe madarasa yale yote ambayo yalikuwa yanatumiwa kama centers na nini yamesafishwa, yamefanywa disinfection na kadhalika. Serikali yetu inafaa ikae chini, ipange vizuri, tuweze kurejelea hali yetu ya kawaida ya maisha, uchumi uweze kuamka tena kwa sababu umedorora sana, na watu waelekeze na kutuambia jinsi ambavyo tunaweza kurudia shughuli zetu za kawaida bila kuambukizana.